Fanatic. John Kincade, Andrew Salciunas. This is Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Well, the Phillies begin a series with the Dbacks tonight. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm still not over it. Still not over what happened last year. And this is why I want the Phillies to be aggressive and not sit on their hands when it comes to the trade deadline. We'll get into a conversation about the Sixers offseason because people are already in a panic. And you know what? I don't necessarily blame you. And also a conversation on all-time Eagles right now on the roster. It's Kincade and Salciunas, Connor, and for John right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
This is Kincade and Salciunas.
Stars in cities, especially like Philadelphia, they are always on the map, and we should expect more winning out of them.
And we'll go to the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. I am a believer that your best player, I think there is also a responsibility as the team spokesperson.
Kincade and Salciunas. John Kincade, Andrew Salciunas.
97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
And a good Friday morning, Philadelphia. I'm Andrew Salciunas alongside Connor Thomas, who's in for John this morning. Connor, good morning.
Good morning, Andy. How you feeling?
I'm great, man.
That's good.
I'm
Another
great.
Fun day.
I was here ready to go.
Yes,
on
you
time.
were.
You know, headphones were plugged in, mic screen was on, and away we go. On a Fanatic Friday, dude.
Yeah.
I got a wedding tonight. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go.
Okay, and we got an NLCS rematch tonight, too.
Oh, what? You want to get right into the sports talk?
Well, I'd love to, because this is a big one tonight.
Is it a big one? For what reason?
Well, I think having this retrospective view of how last year ended and comparing it to where this team is this year is going to tell us a lot about the road this team still has to travel.
I think it's going to tell me absolutely nothing.
Really?
What is this series in June going to tell me about the Phillies team in the playoffs?
It's not the series itself. It's what the series makes you think about. It's about the memories that come back from last year that are going to freak some people out, and the way that some people will look at it, me included, as to why this year is different.
Okay, so we're going to get into that because I don't even know how you're going to come up with some sort of determination on this Phillies team, whether or not they're different from last year. Because what happened last year is inexcusable. The only thing that will make me feel better after this weekend is if not only they sweep the Diamondbacks, but they beat them by 10 runs in each game. Like an absolute beatdown, which that's not going to happen.
No.
So I'm not going to feel better with the fact that the Phillies choked away a 2-1 and 3-2 series lead to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the 3-2 series lead, both games back at Citizens Bank Park, and the bats went ice cold. Listen, what happened last year has nothing to do with this year. It doesn't, except for maybe the mentality. I told you when I was down in spring training, I picked up on this mentality that the Phillies had of still being the fun bunch, but there's a different attitude. They were going to be serious. They were going to be more businesslike. And look, we've seen it. They've won 49 games already. They're looking for win number 50 on June 21st, which is freaking awesome. But, dude, other than maybe having a different mentality going into this season, what happened last year, I will never forgive them for. Ever. They can win the World Series this year. I will still not forgive them for what happened last year. They should have beaten the Texas Rangers in the World Series. And when you have 2 series leads against the Arizona Diamondbacks, a way, way, way inferior opponent, I'm going to forever feel a certain type of way about that series.
You're absolutely right. I'm not saying it makes you feel different about last year, but kind of the question that we've been fighting all year is, as good as this team is, how can we know that slump that they hit in the final part of the NLCS isn't going to happen again? And I'm not saying 3 games in June are going to tell you that. I'm saying where the Diamondbacks are at this year and where the Phillies are at this year and the divergent paths of these two teams should tell you that what we believed last year was correct, that the Phillies were the much better team and still are. And that was...
What does that get me?
And it was an anomaly.
Okay, then an anomaly in the NLCS, Connor.
I understand. It doesn't make you feel better about last year, but
not at all.
Dude, there's a portion of this fan base that believes that those 3 games are what this team is in the postseason.
Right. People say that, John's line of it doesn't matter till it matters and all that kind of stuff. But look, if anybody puts the Diamondbacks over the Phillies for whatever reason, they're a lunatic. I mean, that's it. Like, I don't think Diamondbacks fans think that they're a better team than the Phillies. I don't think D-backs fans last year believe that they're a better team than the Phillies, right? Like, think about how many memes that Phillies fans have created just to piss off Braves fans. I don't think anybody truly feels that the Phillies were the better team than the Braves the last 2 years. It's just that they matched up well in the playoffs because of the rotation. And who knows, maybe that week off did affect the Braves in a certain way, even though it didn't affect the Houston Astros 2 years ago when they won the World Series. But, dude, I'm not going to come out with any sort of moral victory other than, wow, they got to 50 wins by the month of June. There will be no moral victories for me this weekend. I would love for them to just absolutely beat down the Diamondbacks. But even if they do, man, that doesn't make me feel better about last year and how last year ended and how the Phillies are clearly the better team than the D-backs. It does nothing. I don't even know how you come up with some sort of positive spin off of this.
No, it's not. It's not about the NLCS. But this is kind of... It won't be closure because you can't get closure over something.
No.
Like, I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to make this bigger than what it is. I'm just saying having the first matchup with the team that knocked you out last year, it gives you a chance to think about it more in depth than we do over the course of the season.
How? They lost in the playoffs, period, to this team, an inferior opponent.
Right.
Like, I am amazed that you are coming up with any sort of angle off of this series that could potentially make you feel good. I got nothing. Like, this series, it basically means nothing to me. Other than please just beat the crap out of this team.
Yes. In the scheme of this season, yes.
No, not even this season. In my life.
Okay.
In the scheme of my life, it does nothing. Like, this series means nothing to me. Okay, so what? So they beat up the Diamondbacks in the month of June. What do I care about? They lost in the NLCS. I will never forgive them for that, Connor.
I'm not asking you to.
I was at Game 2 when they beat the ever-living crap out of them. And we're saying, oh, my God, they're going to average 10 runs a game this series, and they're going to be at Brandon Pfaadt. Who the hell is Brandon Pfaadt? They're going to lose to Brandon Pfaadt? No, they did. Twice. And all of a sudden, it's a tie series, 3-3 going into Game 7, and the bats go lifeless again. I will never forgive them for it. I love this Phillies team, right? I love pretty much every single player on this team. I love that they are World Series contenders this year. I expected them to be World Series contenders this year. I went into this year with the mindset of forget what happened in the NLCS. I won't forgive them for it. Forget what happened in the NLCS. I don't think that will determine who they are this year. I don't believe that it does. But, man, I can't sit here today and go, well, I might feel a little bit better about myself if they take care of business.
No, but what you just said is the point. You can separate last year from this year. You can. I don't think a lot of people in the fan base can and have done that yet. And I think that's where the majority of trepidation, there should be no concerns about this Philadelphia Phillies team this year right now. Not that they don't have to improve. They do. They have to add something at the deadline. But you shouldn't be looking at this team worried about something coming down the pike. And we know for a fact, because the guy who normally sits in this chair is one of those people.
Yeah, he is.
And I'm not saying he's necessarily wrong, because none of us can predict the future.
And he's not alone. There's a lot of Phillies fans that are always waiting for the shoe to drop.
And that's what I'm thinking when I see a matchup with the not that the matchup itself actually matters, but I think this is a mental point where we can try again to tell people this year is not last year. What happened last year is not tied to this team. Mentally, it's tied to us as fans. Mentally, it's tied to them as a team, and that's why they have this business attitude. But this is another moment to say what happened in the NLCS is not guaranteed to repeat itself every year.
Right, but it's also not a guarantee that they play a team with 86 wins in the NLCS to play the Dodgers this year.
Right.
In the NLCS, and it's a totally different situation. I'm just amazed. I know that you are always more looking at things positively, and I respect that out of you. I don't know how you even came in this morning with some sort of a potential positive spin for maybe not necessarily yourself because you have moved on, but for the fan base. To me, this series means absolutely nothing. This series is just a reminder of a series that I will never, ever forgive them for. I'll never forgive Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber, everybody but Brandon Marsh because he's the only guy that really performed in the last couple of games of that series. And this is... speaking out of love, because I love this team, I'll never forgive them for it. Like, it was horrible. And this is just a reminder of it. And you know what this tells me, Connor? I know we got into a deep conversation about being aggressive at the trade deadline yesterday. This furthers it. Because here's the deal. if the Phillies are in the NLCS, or in the playoffs, excuse me, all but one team, the Dodgers, are inferior to the Phillies. Even though the Braves are still a threat, they're inferior to the Phillies. Every team, the Brewers, are inferior to the Phillies. Any team that could be a wild card team are inferior to the Phillies. But does that matter when I saw what happened last year? No, it doesn't. All I can do is sit here and yell and scream into the microphone that Dave Dombrowski does have to make a splash, does have to go out there and get a legitimate player, does have to have a better trade deadline than Noah Syndergaard and Brandon Marsh and Edmundo Sosa, right? Like, and David Robertson. Like, I need to see a legitimate trade deadline because I don't want to think about prospects 5 years from now. I don't want to think about what could have been if they go up against an inferior team and they lose because their bats went cold. You know what? If 6 out of the 9 batters go cold, hopefully the other 3 stay hot and they win them a baseball game. I saw Nick Castellanos by himself win baseball games against the Atlanta Braves. That game that he had 2 home runs, didn't they only score like 3 or 4 runs? Trey Turner hit a home run, and Castellanos had 2 bombs, both against Spencer Strider, both when they were down in the game. So if I can acquire more talent that could come in here and change a game by themselves, I'm doing that. And I'm not trading for just a 4th outfielder that could be a platoon player. I'm not trading for a 5th arm in the bullpen. I'm trading for a legit bat that can come in here and he can own a game by himself. And it's because of what I saw last year against the Dbacks. I need as much talent as I can get.
I don't blame you for thinking that way at all. Like, I don't. And I understand anyone in the fan base who that's their reason for wanting to be more aggressive. The thing that I think about when you bring that up is even if you do that, it's not an argument to not do that. But even if you do that, it's not a guarantee that they aren't going to, like, hit this weird skid. Like, you just cannot. There's an element of winning a World Series that is unpredictable. And it's why the 2022 Phils happened. It's why the 2023 Diamondbacks happened. It could happen any given year, and that's open more with the extra wild game. So that's part of the equation, too.
The weird skid could be, like I said, 6 bats going cold. But if you have 3 other bats that are staying hot, like, the more talent, you literally had. I know Johan Rojas. It was a bit of a punching bag this year. You had a guy in your lineup pretty much every single game that was an automatic out during the playoffs last year, right? Automatic to the point where he had to get pinch hit for. Like, I'm not picking on Johan Rojas. Rob Thompson told you what he believed in Johan Rojas when he had to pinch hit for him every game in the playoffs. I would rather not go into a playoff series with an automatic out in my lineup. And that also includes, I don't want to say Brandon Marsh is an automatic out, but they tell you what they believe in Brandon Marsh in the lefty-righty platoon.
Well,
I don't want to have to worry about platooning. Like, I want to be able to set up 9 guys that I believe can make an impact night in and night out. And I know you have to play the matchups and all that kind of stuff. But you think about the 2008 Phillies, it got to a point, once Jason Worth won that job over Jeff Jenkins, you knew what the lineup was every single day.
Yeah, and in the postseason, even with teams that, like, rotate guys in the regular season, it is a sprint to the finish where you're playing your 9 best guys basically every night.
Right.
Like, there's no Garrett Stubbs game in the postseason.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't happen. So I totally get what you're saying. I don't think that the Phillies should sit on their hands at the deadline. I do think they should improve the outfield. We're more close than we are apart in this. But, again, when you think about how last year ended, which is impossible not to do when you face the team that it ended against, I think part of the acknowledgement has to be how once in a million it was that they actually lost that series.
Yeah, which makes me feel even worse about myself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which is why I will never forgive them for what happened last year. And so now this is a reminder of it. Do I believe that the Phillies were still the better team last year? Absolutely. Do I believe that they're a better team this year? Would I rather be a Phillies fan than a Dbacks fan today? Absolutely. Even despite what happened last year, I would still rather be a Phillies fan than a Diamondbacks fan, for crying out loud. But this tells me, a reminder that they should go out there and try to acquire more top talent to avoid a potential slide like you saw last year, especially those final 2 games of that series. Would love to hear from you. 610-632-0975. It's the number to call in. It's the number to text in. B-Gun, I can't believe that. I can believe it because Connor's normally Mr. Positive. He's coming in with a positive spin today?
No, I can't. And just like you, dude, I was at game 1 of the NLCS last year, and then I was at game 7. The difference in that building was just astronomical, honestly.
horrible.
It was awful, and I can't get behind. The series really doesn't matter. We're going to bill it up as the NLCS rematch, but it's not going to change anything last year, and it's not going to show me anything this year. They've already shown me enough this year, so it doesn't really matter. But going out there and beating a Diamondbacks team that's not that great. Jordan
doesn't make you
Montgomery
feel
has like
better.
a 10 ERA. He was on the mound tonight. You should rock that guy, right? Even though he came in billed as one of the best pitchers in baseball, like you should rock that guy. This lineup should go out there and beat this team. It's not going to show me anything this series, and it's not going to change the way I feel about this team going forward and what happened last year.
I would honestly, if there are people, to the people that you're talking to, the Phillies fans that might feel validated if they win this series, I have to question what's wrong with you. How would this series make you feel better about
It's
last
not about
year?
validated. I'm going to go because Haley just sent us a screenshot from the YouTube.
All right, what's up, YouTube fan?
Tim Lazier sets this message. Same mistakes and managerial head scratching as last year. Bless Connor and his lollipops and rainbows, he says with emojis. Those are the people I'm talking to. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. When you see them take on the team that they lost to last year, and the difference in skill level between these two teams, it's not, the manager doesn't know what he's doing. It's not, the same mistakes as last year. Last year was weird. It sucked. Everybody's pissed about it, but it doesn't mean people see that and say, okay, it's going to happen again. And this, to me, is a reminder of how different this team is compared to last year's team.
You know what? I find that very interesting. And it almost makes you a hypocrite.
Why is that?
Because you were so against John and I this year wanting to win the division. Because you were like, well, until I see them lose, not winning the division, what does it matter? Well, dude, it's kind of the exact same thing. Like, how am I supposed to just expect the Phillies finishing as a wild card team and beating the Braves again? Like, this is why I wanted them. Like, I didn't want to wait until the time the Braves choked and the Dodgers choked. Like, I want the Phillies to put their foot on their throats early and often, and that's what they're doing this year, thank God. Like, I'm happy about it. But it kind of makes you hypocritical when you say, oh, well, why should I expect it to happen again like it did last year? Well, then why should you expect the Phillies to go into Atlanta and win game 1 behind 3 innings of Ranger Suarez and then 6 innings of immaculate bullpen pitching?
It's totally fair. There's one argument in my favor, and it's not going to sound sane, but it's
Normally doesn't.
It's the only thing. Hey, easy. It's the only thing I have is I've seen the Phils do it twice. Like I saw them do it in back-to-back years with essentially the same team in essentially the same spot, and we know how different year in, year out can be. This team is just a really good playoff team. And I think they've done enough to prove that. And last year, like 1 year runs, if the Phillies after 2022 had just gone back to being, whatever, missed the playoffs, or maybe got in and lost the wild card series to Miami or whatever, we would have said, okay, 2022 was a miracle. This team has a lot more work. Maybe they don't have guys who can win. The fact that I saw it 2 years in a row, them get so close, confirmation that this team is who they looked like in 2022.
Well, why is it not the other way around when you see them kind of go cold 2 years in a row, too?
Right.
That's not who they are.
And I know the Astros are a dynasty.
Right,
I've made that point a million times, but they did literally get no hit in a playoff game. And then last year, their bats went cold again the final 2 games of the series, of the World Series.
I think there's something
NLCS.
to that. Like, I'm not going to deny a lot of people believe, the approach has to be different. They have to strike out less. They have to be more patient. I do think part of that is part of the conversation. But I don't think that restricts them from being able to win. Like, I think they can improve. This is like improving at the deadline. Are there things they could do to be better? Yes. Do they have to happen for them to have a shot?
Have we seen this team dig themselves out of a hole in the postseason yet? This group of guys. We've seen them play well when they're winning and everything's going well, but when they go down, have we seen them turn it around?
Not seen them come
and then
back
kick themselves in the ass and then get back to where they need to be? Like, I haven't seen that yet.
That's fair. We haven't. So, I don't know. Let's hope they don't get put in that situation because this year's team is significantly better than anyone.
Which is why I just want them to be aggressive at the trade deadline, Connor. You're right. They don't have to. And then if they're not aggressive, does that take them out of the conversation of World Series contenders? No, absolutely not. But I always like bettering my chances. That's it.
Right.
That's it. I just want to better my chances. I don't think that's crazy to say. And if I have to trade a prospect for it, so be it. That prospect doesn't do anything for me in 2024, 2025, maybe not even 2026.
I understand.
Depending on who it is.
Right. But this is not just me talking to you. I know when we're in this room, it feels like me just addressing you.
You're also talking to John, I know.
Well, no, it's not even John. There's people on that end of the spectrum with this Phillies team that believe they need significantly more, that the outfield is unplayable, that they have the wrong manager. And those are the people on the far end of the spectrum that take it too far.
Right, yeah, I don't agree with the Rob Thompson stuff. I think he's a tremendous manager.
And that's the fight I'm fighting.
Okay.
Right?
All right, I hear you. The phone number, text line, same number, 610-632-0975. Wow, that went longer than I thought. I can't believe you're finding some sort of positive spin out of this. It's amazing to me. Like, you are an amazing human being. That's good.
Thank you.
That's
I
good.
appreciate
Ladies, this guy's always looking for the positive spin on life, okay? If you're interested. Coming up next, we'll continue the conversation, but also, the Sixers offseason, people are already miserable.
Not positive spin in that.
It took like 12 hours, or not even 12 hours, and people are already miserable. Alex Caruso, already on the move. He was a guy that a lot of people had on their wish list. And a big-name player may already be off the books for the Sixers that a lot of people think was the only player on the radar for the Sixers. We'll give you an update on Paul George coming up next and our Sixers discussion. It's Kincade Salciunas, Connor in for John today, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
An NLCS rematch. I'm Brendan Gunn, and this up.
Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. Connor in for John today. Connor had to turn down the air in here because I was sweating after that first segment because Connor's trying to make a positive spin on the NLCS. Just
no.
You're not making a positive spin on the NLCS. You're saying that this series could put people at ease. And I think if anybody were to actually be put at ease, they'd be crazy.
I'm saying that this series should make you think about where the Phillies are at this year, where the Diamondbacks are at this year, and remind you that the Phillies were the significantly better team and still are.
That makes it worse.
It makes it worse when you look at last year. But when people believe that last year's going to repeat itself, it makes you believe that this team's way better than last year's team. They just flat out are. Like, that's kind of how I look at this. The Diamondbacks were an anomaly. The Phillies are the team that they looked like in 2022 and 2023. And last year was weird. It sucks for last year, but for this year, it should put you more at ease that, this team has the same fatal flaws. They're going to pop up every October.
You shouldn't say that. Yeah. Have you moved on?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't. And I'll be honest. As great of a start as they had this year, I still haven't moved on.
We had this conversation about the Eagles. And I know that was a little bit simpler of an explanation because of everything that changed. And this is largely the same team. But I don't know, when they get off to this start and they become one of the best teams in baseball, think about the narrative surrounding this team the past 2 years. It hasn't been how good is this team? It's they started off slow. They're playing catch up. They might have major issues.
But Connor, a better start in April and May compared to the last 2 years does not put me at ease or does not help me move on from potentially losing a ring. They could have.
I got you.
They could have won the World Series last year.
You're really hung
Phillies,
up on that. I know. But
yes, the World Series, dude. I'm still not over Sixers having a lead with 5 minutes left in Game 6 against the Boston Celtics 2 years ago. I'm still not over the Atlanta Hawks series. I'm still not over the Kawhi shot. These losses, it's hard to get over them. Until it's like the Eagles, right? When they won the Super Bowl, then everything got washed away. Until the Phillies win the World Series, other things will not get washed away. Just because they have the second best record in baseball on June 21st, that doesn't wash away what happened last year for me. Not even close.
I got you. I just don't look at it that way. When you're this deep.
I don't know how. Good for you.
When you're this deep into the next season, when you're this far along, I don't know. I don't have the capacity to be worrying about, this is what they did last year. I'm evaluating.
Well, I'm not worrying about it. I don't think what happened in the NLCS last year will happen in the NLCS this year. But, okay, so let's say they win the World Series this year. Then they could have been a dynasty. What happened last year was quite literally inexcusable.
I understand.
For an entire lineup of high-paid players, of high-profile players, of players that we love to just disappear except for Brandon Marsh.
Right.
That can't happen.
It was a major missed opportunity. It's going to suck for the rest of our lives thinking about the 2023 season.
So 49 wins in June doesn't do anything for me.
I understand, but I'm focused on this. I don't have the mental capacity to worry about what happened last year. We're in it.
I wasn't worried about it last week, but they're playing the Dbacks today, so it's a reminder of what happened. So forgive me for having flashbacks of Nick Castellanos' helmet flying off 17 times because he couldn't, he's pulling out every single swing, even though the sliders were low and away. He's trying to pull everything. He's trying to hit home runs every single pitch. Bryce Harper having a 3-1 cookie down the middle of the plate and hitting it 250 feet to dead center field, a sky-high pop-up. There are plays that are ingrained in my memory that when I close my eyes, I think about. I see the numbers in my head. I see Nick Castellanos, 1 for 27 is my guess.
Right.
For what he did in that series. I can't forget these things.
And what I think about when I see that matchup, it's the same exact thought process, right? When you see this team, you think back to what happened. Where my mind goes is, how different is this team from that team? Not in personnel, but in the way they attack the game, in the way they approach at bats, in the way this pitching staff throws. How different is this team from that team? Because as good as the Phillies were in 2022 and 2023, this team is significantly better.
Or are they playing better right now?
They're significantly better.
Ranger Suarez is better than what he was the last 2 years.
Unbelievably.
Yeah.
So Alec Boehm was nearly unplayable in the
years ago.
postseason.
Yeah, I got you.
last year.
Oh, last year.
And
yeah.
they had him in the cleanup spot. Now the dude is a monster. Like, not just, oh, okay, well, he's going to have a lot of RBIs because he's clutch in certain spots. No, he is just a bona fide really good hitter who's probably going to be the starter at third base in the NL All-Star game, for the NL All-Star team.
Yeah.
Like-
oh, no, he will be. He's got like 800,000 more votes than Machado.
So that's what I'm saying. When I think about it, I think, okay, here's what the Phillies have done compared to what that team was last year, and how does that make me feel about what could be different?
By the way, I'm sorry to Nick Castellanos. I didn't mean to disrespect him saying 1 for 27. It was just 1 for 24.
Oh, see?
I don't. If he had 3 more at-bats, maybe he would have gotten at least 1 more hit in that series. All right, let's go to the phones before we get to the Sixers discussion, because I know Jay from West Philly has some words for you, Connor. Hello, Jay.
Exactly. I don't know how you sitting there thinking that this series is going to do anything to change anybody's mind. The last 2 years, they choked in the playoffs. And you trying to tell me about a good start this year is supposed to change something?
Well,
Connor?
Is that
yeah.
what you're telling me, Connor?
That is what I'm telling you. This team has already done 2 months' worth of different from the past 2 years' team.
This is not the playoffs. The last 2 years, they choked in the playoffs and leave.
I understand, Jay. In the last 2 years,
Up the Diamondbacks,
the last 2 years,
series, that's worse.
Jay, the last 2 years, they also started as one of the slowest teams in baseball. They didn't do that this year.
I don't care. Well, no regular season. You got Mr. MV me here and all this stuff. It's supposed to be about championships.
Let's stop with the
Okay. Bryce
don't need
Harper has
do
nothing
Bryce
to do
Harper.
with this,
Yeah,
Jay.
we're not doing Bryce Harper slander.
Look, I'm talking about this whole thing. He was in it. He was in there. He lost to the Nats and the Diamondbacks and all that. He had the 2-0 lead.
Yeah, lost 2 years ago. Your boy lost 2 years ago in the World Series.
Brandon Pfaadt. Are you serious?
Yeah, he stunk. I mean, well, like, what do you want me to say? They shouldn't have lost to him. We're all on the same page on that.
And you sitting here talking about this hot start, and they're one of the best teams over the last couple of years and all that. They got no hit at home.
Look, they are one of the best teams in baseball over the last couple of years. Jay, I hear what you're saying. I just don't want to go too far, and thanks for the call, man. Like, I don't want to go too far and say that they've been this failure. Like, no, they've been an incredible organization, and I'm very happy to be a Phillies fan.
That's the thing. You guys, you're on the same bus as Jay. The difference is you're getting off like 6 stops up the road.
Right. Jay's going way too far.
Some people do that, though. There are people in this fan base that believe that, and those are the people I'm talking to.
Yeah, but Jay won't feel better after the series is what I'm saying. Like, anybody who does feel better after this series, I think you would be ridiculous.
Right. It's
unless they won 30-0. Like, if you could, the aggregate, or what's the soccer term?
Yeah, I think it's the aggregate.
And the aggregate, the stupid, you can win 1-0, but then lose 2-1 because you gave up 2 goals the next. Like, that's a stupid rule. I don't want to be disrespectful to the beautiful sport of
be
soccer.
nice to soccer.
Like, unless they win 30-0 this series, like, what am I going to do? What is that going to do for me?
It's not about them beating the Diamondbacks. It's about when you face this team, it brings back memories of last year. It gives an opportunity to reopen the discussion. I don't think we've been having this discussion constantly throughout the season, but now that we're thinking about it, it's a time to revisit. And it's not about how they play them. It's about where these teams are and what we've learned about the Phillies compared to last year's team. I'm not even comparing them to the Diamondbacks. I'm comparing them to the team last year that played the Diamondbacks and how different this year's team feels. And the reason we're thinking about it is just because they play.
Because they're playing the Diamondbacks.
Right.
Okay, so we'll continue this conversation. You can text in, call in 610-632-0975. The other thing I want to bring up, the Sixers offseason seems to be making people miserable already. And I can't blame anybody for feeling this way because the Sixers have been a colossal disappointment. We literally had a conversation the other day when you were out, and I know I asked you about it yesterday, whether or not it's more Celtics success or Sixers failure over the last 7 years. That's how down bad we are right now. But the Sixers offseason, Alex Caruso was a player on a lot of people's minds. He got traded yesterday to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Josh Giddey. A 1-for-1 deal, which is amazing to me. Josh Giddey, who hasn't really played up to his expectations for a guy who, and I don't think Alex Caruso is this basketball player, but I think he's a nice piece to have on your team. He's second team all defense last year. He's a good player to have on your team. He's a guy that can handle the rock. So Tyrese Maxey can play off ball at times when he's in the lineup, or Alex Caruso can run point when Tyrese is on the bench, can actually do an entry pass to Joel Embiid, all this kind of stuff. Alex Caruso's a nice basketball player.
Especially if you're a contender like the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Right. That was a great move for them. Another move by Chicago that I just go, what are you doing? Like, okay, whatever. just one of the dumbest franchises in sports, in my opinion. And they got a Lithuanian run the show there, and I like that.
Wow.
That's part of the reason why I'm actually even more upset than
That's
I
litho
normally
on
am.
litho crime.
It's
right
unbelievable, dude. Like, come on, man. Like, have a conversation with me. Like, well, let's talk sports. I'll introduce you to the game
Stop
of hoops.
helping the Bulls.
I'll introduce you to the game of hoops. And then the Paul George reports yesterday. So Paul George reportedly is off the table for the Sixers. Or it looks like. It's not officially off the table, but it looks like the opportunity for the Sixers to land Paul George is waning. Now, I will tell you, based off of some conversations that I have had, yes, Andrew Salciunas does do some reporting every once in a while. The interest in Paul George was very, very real. Like, very, very real. But I think there were people that believed overall he was going to eventually go back to the Clippers. Like, this might be a ploy to try to end up getting the max contract out of the Clippers. I believe that Paul George will eventually go back to L.A. And if he doesn't go back to L.A., the Sixers' opportunity is still there, and it would be for a max contract. I think the biggest holdup right now is that L.A. is yet to offer the max for Paul George. Paul George wants to stay in L.A. He wants to be in L.A.
Right. The Sixers would be a secondary option if the money isn't there.
Right. And that's where we're at right now, which sucks, right? That we're in a position right now where we're basically the second thought, and it's only because our team is willing to give what Paul George would actually wants, even though he would rather be West Coast.
Yeah.
He'd rather be in L.A. He'd rather be in L.A. than Philadelphia. Not necessarily just the team. Because let's face it, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, very, very good trio. So is Maxey Embiid and Paul George, another very good trio. But it seems like based off of reports yesterday, that might not happen. And so now you start spiraling. All right, what's the possibilities of Jimmy Butler? All right, you could trade for him, extend him by 2 years. He ends up getting a max contract. You have him until he's 40 years old. I don't want anything to do with that. I've been pretty stern on that since the rumor started. I don't want Jimmy Butler here. I just don't want to sign him to a 4-year deal until he's 40 years old, even though I know he's part of me feels like I should just say yes. But
He just wins.
He just wins, but I know. I just don't want to do it again. The question is, what's next? There was a Zach LaVine thing out there. You know how I feel about Zach LaVine. I like him.
Yeah, but it feels like the choices are getting really slim really early.
And this incredible cap space offseason that the Sixers have, what is it good for if it seems like there's no options? So it seems like a lot of Sixers fans are already miserable, and I don't blame you for it. If there is a plan that you have that you want the Sixers to do, tell us about it. I know a lot of your plans included Alex Caruso. That is now gone. They want to bring back Batum and Kyle Lowry, right? And Oubre, we've already seen those reports. As of right now, they're running it back. Let's talk about it. You can call in, text in 610-632-0975. It's a Fanatic Friday, so we'll get our first random question out of the hat coming your way next. It's Kincade and Salciunas, Connor in for John right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Bob Cooney.
You have a wide open.
Thomas in for John today on 97.5 The Fanatic. So coming up this segment on a Fanatic Friday, we've been doing this the last couple of weeks, and we will be doing this throughout the summer up until football season. Obviously, come from football Fridays. Football Friday?
Yeah.
Is that what we call it?
Yeah, football Friday.
I'm so used to Fanatic Friday. Football Fridays, it's more serious time. It's time to start focusing on the birds. But during the summer, we will pull random questions out of a hat. Sometimes they're sports related. Sometimes they're life related. They could go in any different direction. So we started doing that a couple of weeks ago. It's going to be a staple of our show moving forward up until the start of football season. But first, let's go to the text line, B-Gun. We've been talking about the Phillies and whether or not this series does anything for you. Now, I saw a tweet from Philly John, which now this is ridiculous. He says, if they lose this series, I'm out. Like, win or lose, this series should do nothing for you.
That can't be real, right? There's
don't know.
no Philly John.
I would hope not. Like,
Stop trolling.
his profile picture is the Fanatic hugging Gritty, so he seems to be a Phillies fan. All his posts are about the Phillies. Like, it would... I can't believe that to be true, but if you truly feel that way, I'm out. If they lose... Dude, they could get swept. They'd fall to 49-28.
Right.
Like, this series should mean absolutely... That's, like, my bottom line is this series means nothing to me.
No.
Except for bad memories.
Right. Well, the actual series means nothing. The memories are correct. For you, they're bad. For me, they're different. That's the biggest thing.
How can they be any different than bad?
They are bad, but I'm saying I don't care. Dude, that season cannot hurt me anymore. It can.
Yes, it can. The rest of your life, it can hurt you. If they win the World Series this year and don't win another one for 10 years, you lost out your opportunity on a dynasty.
I don't.
Not in Connor's mind. He called him a dynasty yesterday.
I didn't call him a dynasty yesterday.
Well, if they get to one, they're a dynasty in Connor's mind.
All right, easy.
Look, they're not. You got to win at least two to be a dynasty.
I understand.
And if you go to a World Series, go to an NLCS, win a World Series, if you go to a World Series, win a World Series, then win a World Series. That means you've been in the Fall Classic 3 straight years and you won 2 out of them. I would call you a dynasty. If you go to the World Series, lose an NLCS, win a World Series, and then you're done after that, you're not a dynasty.
I got you.
You even say you want a dynasty. We've talked about this a million times, you and I.
I do want
We've
one.
Never
I
seen
wanted
one.
them to win last year.
Nobody has seen one, honestly.
I wanted them to win last year. What I'm not going to do is not going to let last season change the fact that this may be the best Phillies team I've ever seen, right? And this team has a lot of special stuff about them.
Yeah,
and some people, when they see the Diamondbacks, think, it's the same old team. This reminds me of last year. This is their favorite.
So you're saying it's a product of losing last year has contributed to this being the best Phillies team you've ever seen? Or could they still be the best Phillies team you've ever seen if they did win last year too? Like,
they could still be better this year.
They could. Yes, they could have. It's not about last year affecting. It's just realizing they're different years. I don't think people can separate this year from last year. And I think you have to enjoy what this team is and understand how good they are.
I'm enjoying the season.
I know you are.
I'm enjoying the season.
Again,
I'm still miserable from last year.
This isn't a you and me thing. You are better at separating it than some people on your side. There are some people who believe this team is not good enough because of what happened last year. And that's crazy. There are people out there that believe that. And those are the people that I'm talking to. And this series is a chance to think back on that and compare it to where this team is at this year and why this team is different.
All right, what do we have on the text line, B-Gun?
We got Mike from Turnersville checking in. He says, I'm still not over that Game 4 loss from last year, most importantly, and the Kimbrel collapse. So the bullpen to him is the biggest acquisition at the deadline because he only trusts Hoffman, Strom, and Alvarado, and Thompson has shown a far quicker hook in the postseason.
That's 3 good arms to trust.
Yes.
And you're letting your starters go a little bit deeper in games. Jose Ruiz has been pretty good for them this year. Like, much better than expected. Do you trust him come playoff time? I'm not going to all of a sudden put all my, all the bread in the basket. By the way, something to point out, because this is like I always say, give credit when credit's due, or we should applaud guys for pitching well or playing well, like Nick Castellanos having a great game the other day. I know statistically the outing wasn't good for Sir Anthony Dominguez because Brandon Marsh did not make the play, and then 3 earned runs are tagged to Sir Anthony Dominguez. He had been pitching great.
Yeah, really, really good.
And I don't think anybody talked about it, except for Bob Cooney. To Bob Cooney's credit, because he asked me, he's like, do you know how long it's been since he gave up an earned run? This was literally before the last outing, so Bob Cooney probably jinxed it. He'd only given up 1 earned run from May 3rd to June 16th, and then he gives up 3 earned runs in his last outing. So a month and a half,
Right.
where he only allowed 1 earned run. He'd been pitching really good. Hopefully, that can continue so that you have now 4 arms that you trust come playoff time.
My worry with him was it was never velocity and it was never stuff. It felt very much like confidence.
Oh yeah, he was still throwing 99. He still had his slider was dancing, but he was missing spots constantly.
Right. That felt like confidence to me. And when I see a guy have a rough outing like that, and I know the Brandon Marsh play was a big part of that, but he wasn't good before that, loading the bases. I wonder if that's a here we go again moment for the player. So I like to see what they do the next time out when they have those.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
So, yeah, but he's been good.
All right, what's the Sixers text we have, B-Gun? Because we're also talking about the Sixers offseason that is already making people miserable.
All right, we got Miz from Northeast Philly checking in. He says, I don't think the Sixers had a bad team last year. They just lacked continuity and chemistry because they continue to change their roster year in and year out. I think they should bring back everybody not named Tobias and Reed and get a guy who can consistently get you 16 to 20 points a game and a serviceable backup center.
Yeah, look, I liked the roster last year. I'm not going to, because they lost, I can't believe how, to the New York Knicks because 2 games they just had lack of effort. I stand by it. Last year was the deepest team they've ever had. Not talented team, because the most talented team was the 2019 Sixers. But that was the deepest team in terms of having guys that could contribute coming off the bench. For crying out loud, Cameron Payne didn't play the first 2 games of the series against the Knicks and then comes out and balls out in game 3 and then gets arrested for whatever happened in Arizona. But last year's team was deep. But it's not easy to just say, yeah, just go get a guy that scores 16, 18 a game. Because Tobias Harris did do that. It was just come playoff time when he would pee himself.
And I also don't think that's good enough. Think about it. If that last year's Sixers team was healthy and they ran up against the Celtics team, they're losing.
Yes.
And we don't know what the Celtics are going to look like next year, but they're probably not getting significantly worse.
No, absolutely not.
So,
and we have seen in the NBA, once you win one, there's a legitimate chance that it snowballs into multiple, maybe not back-to-back,
right?
But it could be 2 and 3 years, but that means they're still going to be very good next year as long as everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, so I don't think Miz's solution is good enough, and I also don't know that it's realistic that you can even do that.
Yeah,
so,
might not be.
Not a great spot.
Sixers offseason's already troubling. All right, coming up next, we reset the entire show. We did not pull a question out of the hat, so we'll do that to start the 7 o'clock hour as well. Also, coming up next, I had a realization earlier this week. I forgot that you weren't in when I had it. I thought it was at the end of last week. So I can't wait to say it to you to see what your honest reaction is. But it's going to lead to a discussion about all-time Eagles and how many are on this current roster or could be on this current roster. It's Kincade and Salciunas, Connor and for John today right here, 97.5 The Fanatic. The Fanatic. All right, coming up in about 10 minutes, I misspoke. I thought Connor was out for this. Connor was in for an A.J. Brown discussion that we had last week when I had a realization. But that doesn't mean we still can't have a discussion about the entire Eagles roster, because this team is very talented, and there are some players currently that could go down as, eventually, one of the greater Eagles of all time at their respected positions. So we'll talk about that coming up around 7:10. But just to let you guys know, if you're just tuning in, good Friday morning. Phillies begin a series with the Diamondbacks today. When I saw the schedule this morning, I saw Dbacks. I saw 3-game series. My immediate thought went to, holy hell, I will never forgive them for what happened last year. And then it turned into a discussion about, well, for me at least, and then we'll get to what Connor was saying, about how the Phillies absolutely have to go out there and make a legitimate splash come trade deadline time. I don't want to go out there and just make a couple of marginal moves, because here's the deal. The Phillies lost to an inferior opponent last year in the Arizona Diamondbacks. Any team they face in the playoffs this year in the National League side, other than the Dodgers, I believe are inferior to the Phillies. I don't want there to be any reason for me to say that is why they lost. And last year, even though the lineup went cold collectively, you had guys in the lineup like a Johan Rojas who was an automatic out. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to have automatic outs on my team. I don't want to have defensive issues on my team. I want to go into and you have the opportunity to, because for the first time in a long time, you actually have a legitimate farm system where you can probably attract some teams that will give you one of their top players if they are sellers, and you could trade your top prospects for them. I know it's easier for me to say because I have the belief of I don't give a damn about prospects, so it's easier for me to say that. But what happened last year is an added incentive for me to go out there and be aggressive, because I don't want to have any reasons why they lose a playoff series to an inferior opponent.
We're very, very similar on this. The one difference for me, right, because you're right, this team's better than most of the teams in the National League, probably all of them right now, including the Dodgers, but that's a close series if and when that happens. But wanting to improve this team so that there's no holes in the roster is absolutely fair, and that's what every single Phillies fan should want. Now, your determination of how good those players need to be and how much you're willing to give up, that's a debate, and that's one we'll have as we draw closer to the trade deadline.
We have 5 weeks of it.
Yeah, but what I'm looking at when I think about last year's team is I don't think about how to avoid being the 2023 Phillies come postseason. I look at how this team has already shown me they're different. Right? That's where my mind goes. Because,
and they have.
Right. And some people don't believe that this team is different. Some people believe that the same flaws exist the last time you faced this Diamondbacks team compared to now. And I think that's crazy. So this is an opportunity for me, who believes that, to try and make my case as to why, yes, there are things this Phillies team needs to learn from last year. But there are things that we need to leave in last year that I don't think this fan base is totally done yet.
And I don't think, because you were saying this series might help people if they take care of business. I think you're crazy if this series does help you. I think you're also crazy if this series makes you feel bad, because we got a tweet earlier from Philly John who said if they lose this series, I'm out. Nothing about this series should impact how you feel about the Phillies either way. It really shouldn't. This series, to me, means absolutely nothing except for bad memories.
I got you. And I think that's the smart way to look at it.
Wow, thank you.
Now, what I will say is I don't think everybody in this fan base takes a smart approach to evaluating a baseball team.
No, we're manic.
Yeah.
We're manic, and sometimes manic is not smart.
Right. And it's not everybody, and I'm not calling you a bad fan or anything like that.
You're not.
I'm just trying to tell you the way that I attack a baseball season. And I also think that for those people who put too much stock into certain series, if they do play well, maybe it'll be an irrational forcer to get those people closer to where they should be, which is this team's really, really good.
So you can text in, call in 610-632-0975. The other discussion that we're having, Sixers off-season. A lot of people seem to be miserable already, and I can't blame anybody for already being miserable when a lot of people had Alex Caruso on their wish list. He's already traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's reports that the thought of Paul George that the Sixers might be waning. This could also be agent speak, so I wouldn't start freaking out just yet. I saw a lot of people saying that Daryl Morey's already rumbling this. Like, no. Wait until it actually happens before you read into some reports. I know that the Sixers really want Paul George. I've spoken to enough people where they really want Paul George, but I also do believe, based off of some conversations that I've had, that Paul George wants to go back to L.A., and that wouldn't shock me, right? How many times has somebody picked L.A. over Philadelphia? I know it sucks, but let's be realistic. That is a thing, whether it's the Clippers or the Lakers. People pick L.A. over the Sixers. LeBron James didn't even go to the meeting with Brett Brown and the Sixers brass 5 years ago. He let Rich Paul do the talking, right? And he signed with the Lakers like the next minute. So I get it. People pick L.A. over Philadelphia all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where Paul George ends up. It kind of feels dirty that we're the second option because the Sixers might be the team that's willing to offer the max, and the Clippers have not done that just yet. But your thoughts on the Sixers offseason so far, 610-632-0975. If you're just miserable, feel free to vent. If you have a plan, let us know. Now, we did get a tweet from Eddie Sacchetti. 76ers plan? LeBron or literally nothing. Nobody wants to come here, part 532. It's over, dude. Joel should just retire. They're never going to win. Morey can't recruit or think outside of his Houston box, and it's obvious nobody wants to be here, max deal offered or not. I can't even, attack Eddie for that. People are down bad, and nobody should, as John makes fun of me for it. I'm usually always positive when it comes to the Sixers. I can't even find a spin to make you feel good, except for what Eddie said. LeBron or literally nothing. LeBron James comes here, you have a total shot at winning the NBA championship.
Yeah.
I don't know if Paul George doesn't come here, and I'm not even in favor of the Paul George move. I don't know who you could actually find that could come here that puts you in a legitimate championship conversation. Do I believe Zach LaVine helps you? Yes, I think he helps you more than Tobias Harris. But do I think they're championship contenders with Zach LaVine? Unless Joel Embiid stays healthy and is playing MVP basketball again, I don't know if I could say yes.
I have one guy that I have thought about. I'll save it for when we get deeper into this. But I have one guy that I think could be the plan for the Sixers, and I don't know how realistic it is. But the one thing I'll say to people who are already worried about this and going after Daryl Morey and the Sixers can't do this, can't do that, I brought it up yesterday. This is the team. They're a championship contention want team. They have the second most cap space in basketball. So if you are a player remotely in that stratosphere, your agent is going to say, we are going to leverage the Sixers. You're going to hear a lot of rumors this offseason about players that, the Sixers could be interested in this. And it's going to be agent-driven, and it's going to be guys trying to get max contracts from other teams. The Sixers are going to be used all offseason long.
They sure will.
And it's not Daryl Morey's fault, in this moment. It's not the Sixers organization fault in this moment.
No, it's the fact that they have the money to do it.
And we need to, as a fan base, you need to mentally protect yourself for what's coming because there's going to be a lot of this.
All right, we can get your text, your call, 610-632-0975. In a couple minutes, I want to do this all-time Eagle conversation. But B-Gun, give us our first question out of the hat on this Fanatic Friday.
All right, let's pull it out. Here we go. Most important skill to have.
That's out of context.
Yeah, it is. Most important skill to have?
Pull it out.
Oh, my God.
Look.
Jeez.
He ain't. It's a good one. It's a good skill to have. Okay? Not that I'm saying anything, but it's
early morning with Cooper this morning.
It's a good skill to have.
All right.
That's a good question. And most important skill to have. I'm decent with handiwork around the house. I wish I was very good.
Yeah.
I could fix things. I wish I could do it like that, not have to think about it.
Da Vinci level, where you're not just fixing things,
I don't
you're creating new ways to do
I don't even have to be Da Vinci. So I'll use a prime example. My dad and I are building a deck at his shore house, right? Well, the house that he lives in, it just happens to be down the shore. And the deck was already built. They wanted to expand it, him and my mom. And their neighbor, Ralph, across the street, works with glass. He does windows, sky, the sky lighting and all that kind of stuff. So he sees us struggling. right? My dad's trying to cut the wood to make a base so that you could put other wood on top and blah, blah, blah. And he comes over and goes, let me give you a tip. Just do this. And we're like, whoa, hold on. Slow. You got talk like we're 5. Here, let me just show you. First off, he goes in his garage and brings a tool shed that you would find at Home Depot, right? Like he had everything. And in 2 minutes, he did something that took 30 for us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he didn't measure. He goes, all right, so what, you got 2x10s here? Because he does it so much that he knew what the wood was just by looking at it. I was like, yeah. And there it is. He's done. And I was like, damn, I wish I could do that. I could do what my dad does. It's just going to take me 10 times longer than what Ralph can do.
That's a great skill. I'm thinking a little bit more kind of heady, but when you talk about great skills to have, communication, like the ability to be an expert communicator with people, break down what you want, understand what they want, and be able to convey that between the two of you, I think is the greatest skill in life.
What if they want is idiotic?
Well, then you have a way. Like if you're a great communicator, you know how to talk to that person in the right way that you don't put them down or anything. That's the way you get things in life, is communicate. It's not money. It's not like ulterior motives. If you can talk to people and understand what they want and convey what you want, you can get further in life than I think any other skill.
That's deep. Begun?
Yeah, similar sentiment, I guess. Just patience. I'm the least patient person there ever was, and it gets me into some scenarios I probably shouldn't be in. I'm still mad about the Phillies, so I want to skip ahead to the postseason.
Yes.
I'm still mad about the Sixers. I want them to skip ahead a little bit too. The Flyers, I want them to compete. I don't have the patience to wait 2 more years, right? So it would help me in my life out here. It would help me in relationships, all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like patience a little bit. So I think that's the most important skill to have.
Patience is something that I have. My wife does not.
Yeah, well, that's a good balance.
It is a good balance. Now, then again, we went like everyday guy patient skills. Right. I do wish I could throw 100 miles an hour.
Oh, I was going to
I do wish I could hit a golf ball 350 feet down the fairway.
You could take my voice away if you gave me the ability to dunk.
That's so useless out of any of the sports.
No, it's not.
No, because
dude.
just because you can dunk does not make you a professional athlete. Like if I throw 100 miles an hour, I'm in the major league.
No, that's spoken by 2 guys who have never been able to dunk. Like that's the thing. Could you imagine walking on any court in the country for a pickup game and just throwing down a windmill on somebody?
What money does it get you?
I don't care.
What does it do for your life?
What does it matter if I'm swapping threes in your face again?
Yeah,
exactly.
Doesn't matter. Like you can hit threes all you want. I'm gonna be cooler if I can dunk.
No,
I'm sorry,
but hitting threes will probably get you more money than dunking.
Yeah, but that's not the point. It's the dominance.
Steph Curry versus Dwight Howard. Like who's making more money at this point in their career?
Anyone could shoot threes. I want something I can't possibly have, and that's dunking.
Yeah, no, I think that is actually, out of all the things in the world, that might be one of the worst answers.
Yeah, I'm with Chunas on this.
Like if I can hit a driver 350 down the fairway, I at least have a conversation on the tour.
Yeah, you're making money playing golf.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like dunking doesn't get you any money.
I'll be one of those dunk squad guys. Just jump off the trampolines. I don't know.
But then you don't need the trampoline if you can already dunk.
You're right. I'll be the #1 dunk squad guy in the country. Right. I want hops, baby.
I do love these questions that I had. They lead to good conversation. Okay. So speaking of conversation, I want people to start thinking about this and start sending in your answers now on the text line at 610-632-0975. You can also call in at 610-632-0975. It's a discussion that I want to have as the show continues. The jumping off point was about the Phillies because that's the here and now. Obviously, the Sixers' latest news, the here and now. But you know Eagles talk is always going to come up on the station, right? So I had a realization last week. I don't even know what came of it. I think I saw a story Tim McManus wrote a story about A.J. Brown's training that he did this offseason and how he went harder than he ever did before. He was so upset with last year that he went into this offseason with a more stronger mentality than he has in years past. His mentality that he has in year past has got him pretty good numbers.
Yep.
He's almost at 3,000 yards as a member of the Eagles. I'm not even saying his career when he was with Tennessee. As a member of the Eagles, he's almost at 3,000 yards. As a member of the Eagles, now this is pretty bad for Eagles franchise history, but he is already nearing the top of receiving yards in Eagles franchise history. So I had a realization. He already signed the extension. It's a pass-happy league. Him and Jalen Hurts have an incredible bond. If he stays healthy and things go well, A.J. Brown could very well go down as the all-time leading receiver of the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I kind of just had that realization. Remember last year we were comparing him to T.O.?
Yeah.
Very well so that we compare him to T.O. T.O. was here for a year and change, right? A.J. Brown, as long as everything goes well, will be here for ultimately probably 8 years, right? He's already played 2. He already signed the extension. I think it's 5 more years, so 7 seasons. Let's say he's done after this extension. 7 seasons with the Eagles. If he's averaging 1,000 yards per season from here on out, he's breaking Harold Carmichael's record. So A.J. Brown very well could go down as the greatest wide receiver in Eagles franchise history, which is astonishing to me because this is a guy that they somehow got for a first-round pick with the Tennessee Titans, who have now failed miserably since the trade happened. It then made me think, for today's conversation, what other Eagles currently on this roster will go down as an all-time Eagles great or in the conversation for their respected position? Now, let's get a couple out of the way. Brandon Graham will be an all-time Eagle when he officially retires. You can make the case that he is already an all-time Eagle. Now, I don't put him above Reggie White, but for what he did, what it meant to this franchise, he's going to be in that conversation. Lane Johnson will probably go down as the greatest right tackle in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they've had tremendous tackles in the history of the franchise. You see the numbers of this team when he's off the field, how bad they are and how good they are when he's on the field. Lane Johnson, Brandon Graham, we can make the case right now, will go down as all-time Eagles at their respective positions.
Those are the 2 locks. I have 6 more that I have questions
All
about.
right, let's talk about it. So give me one, and we'll discuss it.
All right.
And AJ Brown, I believe, could, and again, this is also potential. So Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson are, you can make the case, already are.
Yes. Now, I have a question about how we're determining this. Like, would T.O. be part of this conversation? Are we looking at the skill level peak? Or are we looking at the
I'm saying career.
Okay.
Donovan McNabb is still the greatest quarterback in Eagles franchise history, even though he didn't win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't have the miraculous stretch that Nick Foles had. He didn't have a 27-2 season, right? 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But in totality, Donovan McNabb is the greatest quarterback in Eagles franchise history. So to your question about T.O., Harold Carmichael is still to date the greatest wide receiver in Eagles franchise history, not based off of just one season like T.O. had.
Right.
Individual season, T.O. was number 1.
So that makes an interesting argument for the running back you acquired this offseason.
Dude, I thought about him.
Where do you land on Saquon?
So, I mean, look, he very well could go down. I mean, the Eagles have had great running backs in the history of the franchise.
Shady, Brian Westbrook,
right. I still believe that LaShawn McCoy, and this isn't just because it's recency and because of who I, grew up watching.
Right.
LaShawn McCoy, to me, should go down as the greatest running back in Eagles franchise history. Wilbert Montgomery is obviously top 3. Brian Westbrook is in that top 3. I like Deuce Staley a lot. He should not be in the conversation of top 3.
No.
Saquon Barkley could very well go. He won't be all-time leading,
but that's what I'm
rusher.
Saying. Like skill level wise, Saquon Barkley could very possibly at this moment be the most skilled running back that the Eagles have ever had.
Right.
But will he be here long enough? That's part of the discussion.
He might not be. And so maybe he's not in the conversation. I got to think about that because man, LaShawn McCoy ran for 6,792 yards. He's probably not going to catch that.
No.
Because he's only got a 3-year deal, and he's not going to.
LaShawn McCoy did that in how many years?
Right. It's a good. Wow, he only did it in 6 seasons.
Wow. Dude, the Shady was unreal, man.
He only did
Screw you, Chip Kelly.
He did it in 90 games.
Yeah, 54 touchdowns, dude. The most touchdowns in a single season as well.
Saquon will get that this year.
We'll see.
Saquon might not be number 1, but in conversation. Like if you're doing Mount Rushmores of running backs, he might be in there at some point. We'll see. So I want to have that conversation. How many Eagles on this roster right now could go down as all-time Eagle greats at their respective positions? Connor says he has 6 potential. We'll go through them as the show goes on. Would love to get your texts on this and your calls. 610-632-0975. It's Kincade and Salciunas. Connor and for John right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sport.
7:30 on Kincade and Salciunas on this Friday morning, right here on 97.5 The Fanatic. Hey, real quick, want to give a nice little shout-out to a local kid, Shane Cohen, from Lower Moreland. He just qualified for the Olympic qualifying races, so he still has to qualify to get into the Olympics. He won an 800-meter relay, or I don't know what the race is.
800-meter race, I think.
Was it just a race? Yeah. I don't know track and field, so forgive me. But I want to give the kid a shout out. Lower Moreland. He did it in college with Virginia, and he is now qualified to try to qualify for the Olympics. That's awesome. Local kid, man. So congratulations to Shane Cohen on your success.
That would be like the peak of sports for me. Would be to represent this country in the Olympics. That would be the number one.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Over any championship in any North American sport, I think I'd take that.
What sport?
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't qualify for anything in the Olympics.
Like I'm saying, like archery?
Yeah, maybe. Like, I don't. Can I just pick the sport?
He's one of those guys that says, if I had a year to practice,
I could do it.
I could be a curler.
No way. These people do that.
No way.
Life.
2 weeks give me and I can do it.
Yeah, exactly. A year.
Stop.
Give me 2 days.
I think like yard games if cornhole was in the Olympics. If they're maybe.
I probably will be soon.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if cornhole will be in it one day.
Flag football's going soon.
But it would be awesome to be able to represent your country.
It would be awesome.
That's what some people are trying to take away from Joel Embiid, but that's a different.
Well, that's the guy that we do the show with. Okay, so one of the conversations we just opened up. I had a realization last week. Do you have the Adam Schefter clip, B-Gun?
Yeah, I got it pulled up.
All right, let's play it. So I just want to put this into perspective. So I had this realization last week that A.J. Brown could go down as the greatest wide receiver in Eagles franchise history. And I'm not saying that to try to go viral. I literally just it hit me when they signed the extension, and then I read the story from Tim McManus about how hard he's training this offseason because of how last year pissed him off so much. Through 2 seasons with the Eagles, he has 2,952 yards through 2 seasons, okay? Out of wide receivers, the all-time leading receiver for Philadelphia Eagles franchise history is Harold Carmichael with 8,978. So if he does this, same clip, so through 2 seasons, let's just say he's at 3,000 yards. Another 2 seasons, he's at 6,000 yards. Another 2 seasons, he's at 9,000 yards. He would surpass Harold Carmichael. And that's if he does 1,500 flat both years. He could end up doing more. He could end up doing less. We'll see. But even if he doesn't reach Carmichael in the next 4 seasons, he'll then surpass him with ease in the final year of his contract. A.J. Brown, to me, could very well, easily, go down as the greatest wide receiver in Eagles franchise history. Now, I will say this before people go, oh, well, what about this? What about that? It is criminal what Chip Kelly did because Deshaun Jackson should be number 1.
Right.
Deshaun Jackson has 6,512 receiving yards in his career with the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, he came back for a stint, but he got hurt after 5 seconds. If Deshaun Jackson played out his career in Philadelphia, he blows away what Harold Carmichael did. In his career, he finished with 11,000 receiving yards. So if he stayed with the Eagles, and in the Chip Kelly offense, especially, he blows away what Harold Carmichael does. But we're talking about Eagles uniform, what they did as an Eagle, so that's why T.O. does not come into the conversation because he only did it for the 1 year. A.J. Brown, because of what Chip Kelly did to Deshaun Jackson, what that reporter reported, he should be number 1, but he's not. A.J. Brown will go down, I believe, as the greatest receiver in Eagles franchise history, and that's crazy.
I don't think that's a stretch either. I don't. I think that's a realistic projection based on what he's already done here. But it's going to be tough to make that, I think, about any other player. So we're going to have a little bit more leeway to put other people in that category.
Well, yeah, and we'll see. I mean, look, there doesn't have to be leeway to put people in the category. There doesn't. No, it is. You are. You're not. Right.
Right.
But it's based off of potential. So here's Adam Schefter earlier this week. I asked him about it. I was just like, you know what? What does Shefty think? And I also wanted to know how do people value A.J. Brown across the league? Because I feel like he's not in the conversation with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, and I think he should be. And Shefty kind of thinks the same way.
A.J. Brown is still one of the best wide receivers in the league. And if we made a list of the top wideouts in the league, how many more would you actually say unequivocally would prefer to A.J. Brown right now? Like, who would be on that list? Again, off the top of my head, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, maybe.
I mean, that's it. Like, there aren't many wide receivers better than A.J. Brown.
Right. I will say I think he's more in that conversation nationally than you give the rest of the nation credit for.
Okay.
Like, I do see him mentioned alongside those guys relatively often.
Okay.
But
maybe it's because I always think people hate Philadelphia.
Well, they
Maybe
do.
that's my
But
issue.
every
I think
once
that's
in a while,
kind of recent, though. I think it's because of that 6-game stretch last year, and then he
Yes.
kind of teetered off at the end.
I don't
But
think he was
before-
talked about much the first year.
Yeah,
in
I don't think so
Philadelphia.
either.
The Eagles weren't respected the first year. Remember,
Right.
Sirianni wasn't a top 3 finalist for Coach of the Year. There was a lot of players that weren't top 3 finalists that they're respected. Hassan Redick was not a top 3 finalist for Defensive Player of the Year, I don't think. Like, there was a lot of disrespect shown toward the Eagles 2 years ago when they made it to the Super Bowl. And I think A.J. Brown wasn't talked about it much until, to your point, begun last year when he broke Calvin Johnson's record. They had to talk about it at that
right.
point.
And that's fair reasoning. I just do think that there's now respect for A.J. Brown at that level, as there should be, because he's amazing.
Absolutely. All right, so I know you have players that you wrote down. What do we have on the text line, Begun, about players that could go down? Again, some of this is based off potential. It's not what has already happened. Potentially go down as the greatest at their position.
Yeah, we got Jamal from West Philly checking in with 2 guys, and it's funny, he put a qualifier on one, but not on the other. So he checks in first. He says, if Hurts wins 2 Super Bowls, it'll be him at the quarterback position.
Absolutely.
And then he also said, Devontae Smith is a stone-cold lock. Defenders are going to be doubling A.J. Brown, leaving Devontae open most of his career. He runs immaculate routes and has great hands.
Wasn't A.J. Brown defended, like, double-teamed last year?
Yeah.
And he still finished with, 1,400 yards last year? I don't know if Devontae Smith is a stone-cold lock. I think it could be A.J. Brown's number 1 and Devontae Smith is number 2. If he's not number 2, he's number 3 behind Harold Carmichael.
Devontae's on my list as a guy that could be in that qualification.
Yeah, especially because of his age. I mean, he is still also... A.J. Brown is...
26.
Jesus, he's only 26.
Nuts, right?
What's Devontae Smith, 23?
24, I think.
23 or 24? He is 25. Young 25.
Okay.
No. 220 days into his 25th birthday, man. He turns 26 in November. He's old.
Oh, my God.
Put him in a home.
You might as well trade him now, yeah. But yeah, no, Devontae Smith, I can't say stone cold lock. I would go A.J. Brown before Devontae Smith.
You have to.
Even though A.J. Brown trails Devontae Smith in terms of yards by a whole 200, and Devontae Smith had an entire year ahead of A.J. Brown in terms of playing with the Philadelphia Eagles, the Jalen Hurts part could happen. Like Jalen, even if he doesn't win 2 Super Bowls, Donovan McNabb never won a Super Bowl.
Right.
And he is still the greatest quarterback in Eagles franchise history. The same thing we say about wide receivers and how the numbers are inflated. Same thing goes for quarterbacks this year. Jalen Hurts could go down as the greatest quarterback in Eagles franchise history. He just isn't right now.
Also, the Eagles have never had an MVP. If Jalen Hurts wins an MVP,
Oh, yeah, it's true.
like, he is in that conversation immediately.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. The Eagles have never had a starting quarterback win a ring. We know this.
Right.
And they've never had an MVP at any position. So if he wins a Super Bowl and wins an MVP, it's easy for that's not easy, but I mean, it's easy with those qualifications to consider Jalen
It
Hurts
makes it
the greatest
easier. Yeah,
quarterback.
absolutely. Let's go to Andrew in Phoenixville. What's up, Drew?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
How are you, man?
So, yeah, I agree with you guys about A.J. Brown becoming the best wide receiver ever. But there are 2 factors that come into play. Obviously, with Jason Kelce leaving as offensive line is going to need to be as perfect as possible to protect Jalen Hurts to have the plays develop this year and the following years for Jalen Hurts to get the ball to A.J. Brown. Now, here's the thing. In the past few years, Jalen Hurts has never really let the plays develop, and he's scrambled out of the pocket pretty quickly and not really gotten the ball to A.J. Brown as
well. He did 2 years ago. It was last year that he did not. And I'm hoping that the Kellen Moore offense helps that.
And that's the thing. I mean, those 2 factors really help A.J. Brown become the best wide receiver ever. Just because you're the best wide receiver doesn't mean you're the best wide receiver. There are other factors that come into play, such as
the offensive line to help those plays develop, to get him wide open.
Right, absolutely.
And so, I agree with you that he'll become the best wide receiver, but it really depends on other factors.
No, you're absolutely right. I can make the case, and thanks for the call, Andrew, that Joe Burrow might not go down as the greatest Bengals quarterback because he never has an offensive line in front of him and his leg breaks off every other year.
Right.
Like right now it's Carson Palmer because he had Chad Johnson and an offensive line in front of him. Now he had a bozo head coach that went 8-8 for like 55 straight years, and the Bengals decide never to fire him.
What's Marvin Lewis up to these days?
Dude, I don't know how he lasted as long as he coached for like 20 years.
I know.
And didn't
He's going 8-8 somewhere, dude.
Yeah, and just didn't do anything. But yes, so Andrew's correct. But I'm not really thinking about, how is Cam Jurgens' impact, or how does he impact A.J. Brown? I'm not thinking about
right.
that.
It's kind of just looking at the player in a vacuum and projecting out based on their skills.
Right. Absolutely. All right, so we'll continue this conversation. We'll pull another question out of the hat on this Fanatic Friday coming up next. You can text in, call in some answers at 610-632-0975. And also, I can't believe I've waited this long. But now that it's official, I need to see who's on my side of this war. And no, not the one with the afternoon show.
How many wars are we fighting?
I'll fight multiple, dude. There's Game of Thrones in this bitch, man. I'll fight multiple wars. I don't care. I got enough people. I hope I have enough people on my
Something
side.
about never fighting a war on two fronts, but we'll ignore that.
So I got to see how many people are on my side of this war. And I think a lot of you won't be. Because a lot of you are frauds. It's Kincade and Salciunas, Connor in for John, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Kincade and Salciunas. Listen.
9:47 on Kincade and Salciunas. Connor in for John today. I was doing my best John impression with the mic off. For those who listen to the show closely, know exactly what I'm talking about when that return plays. Only if you listen to the show close enough. All right. Yes, we are at war with the afternoon show, but I am willing to sign a treaty as long as they join the fight to root for the failure of J.J. Redick with the Los Angeles Lakers. I despise J.J. Redick, as you guys know. It's almost unhinged, my dislike for J.J. Redick. J.J. Redick, I will remind you of the timeline, signed here for a very handsome deal before the Sixers were actually ready to contend. And it has been reported by multiple people that they gave him more money than he would have gotten anywhere else with an under-the-table handshake agreement that when this team is legitimately ready to contend for a title, he would get a little bit less so that they can add to the team that they built. And he was all for it. And then when it's time to re-sign the contract, he didn't wait. And he took the bag. Now remember, when he was playing here for the Sixers, he made it very clear that playing for the Sixers was great for his family life because his family lived in Brooklyn. He would travel, to his credit, as a family. I respect him as a father. How about that? As a family man, he would go to Brooklyn after games. He would either drive or take a train. Like, he didn't live in Philadelphia. I'm sure some nights, maybe they had a back-to-back.
Yeah,
he
like
would
he
stay
slept on
somewhere.
Embiid's couch or something.
No, he probably stayed at the Four Seasons or something. He would travel back to Brooklyn if his schedule allowed it. And he would do that as often as he could, so I respected that. I'm not really good with geography, but I'm pretty sure Philadelphia is closer to Brooklyn than New Orleans, which is where he signed a contract after his contract ran up with the Sixers. And what pissed me off was, he didn't want to wait long. He was going to get a contract from the Sixers. They just wanted to figure out everything else and then figure out how much money they had left to give J.J. Redick to appease him. J.J. Redick swept the rug from under the Sixers and left. And I think people forget that. Clearly they forget that because when he comes back as an announcer, he got a standing ovation by Sixers fans, which made me vomit. I literally had a trash can next to my couch and I puked inside of it because I couldn't believe that people gave a standing ovation to a backstabber. All right? And that's what J.J. Redick is. And so now, J.J. Redick, Mr. Podcaster, who talks down to everybody. I know people like it when he fights back Stephen A. Smith. Oh, yeah, that guy doesn't really know ball. J.J. does. If you listen to his podcast, he is talking down to everybody. Everybody. I think he's pompous. He stabbed the Sixers in the back, which means he stabbed all Sixers fans in the back. But because he had tattoos, gelled hair, and hit threes, people loved him. He then had the nerve to rip the New Orleans Pelicans franchise for trading him to the Dallas Mavericks and not a team that he wanted to go to. You're J.J. Redick, bro. You were in your late 30s. You had no say into where you were going. He has disrespected the history of the NBA about Bob Cooney, which I kind of appreciated, but I'm glad that NBA legends ripped J.J. Redick for it. I'm glad that he became an enemy for a little bit. And now he has zero coaching pedigree, nothing, zero experience. But because he drew up some plays on a whiteboard with LeBron drinking wine on his podcast, he gets the job with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I hope that a lot of you join the fight in rooting for the failure of J.J. Redick. Because let's face it, we are supposed to hate the Lakers. There is historic beef between the Sixers and the Lakers. Don't all of a sudden, I hope he does well, because you thought J.J. Redick liked being here, where clearly he didn't like it enough when he signed a deal with the New Orleans Pelicans, which is not close to Brooklyn.
It's a strong argument by you.
It's the only argument.
One that you've clearly held for a long time.
Held? No, I've been pretty open about it.
Well, I mean, you've held this thought process. not withheld it, but I understand why you feel that way. And I'm also rooting for J.J. Redick to fail.
Thank you.
But I'm rooting for a different reason.
Why?
I don't really care as much about J.J. Redick as clearly you do.
I've said it multiple times. It is an ex-girlfriend thing.
Yeah.
If J.J. Redick ever came up to me and said, "Yo, bro, I heard you talk a lot of smack about me," I'd say, "Yeah, because you were perfect here, and you had every chance to win, and you went to New Orleans."
Right.
Like, I would straight up question, all right, what was important to you? Because New Orleans was not ready to win. Zion couldn't stay healthy, and that team was too young to do anything. So you went to New Orleans?
All your stuff is fair. I don't have that venom in me for J.J. Redick to that level, but if I had to pick a side, I'd be on your side.
I could legitimately make the case that they don't fall apart the way they do with Al Horford if they had J.J. Redick.
Right. Yeah.
Because now Al Horford's not standing on the top of the key.
Yeah.
Like, it changed how they played that year.
Totally agree.
Josh Richardson then had to be your two guard that couldn't shoot from beyond 12 feet. He screwed the Sixers over.
All of this
people
is right.
don't remember this.
All of this is right. But there's another reason that I want to see him fail.
Why?
And it's because I want to see an NBA coach get fired on a podcast by a player. I think it's going to be hilarious to watch this situation unfold. And I also don't see the Lakers as a bona fide threat to anything the Sixers are trying to accomplish. Like, yeah, they're a solid team. They're in the other conference. They're probably not coming out of the West anytime soon. So it's not like it's high stakes for the Sixers how they do. I'm just going to enjoy kind of the drama of it because there will be drama and it will be weird.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't think J.J. Redick is getting that job to coach the future of the LeBron James-led Lakers. Like, I think it's maybe one last hurrah, but then to usher in the next generation of Lakers basketball.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Okay.
But still going to root for him to fail.
Yeah, I don't want to see him win.
No, nobody should. But I know there's probably some people that go, oh, he's in the West. I won't worry about him until the finals. No, you know what? Root for them to not even make the playoffs.
Lose every game. 0-82.
Join the fight. I'll put papers outside of One Ballot Plaza. You can come in, or I'll do a draft, damn it. Don't make me do that. All right, coming up next, we continue the Eagles conversation. Also, we talked a lot of Phillies in the first hour. We've gone away from it. Jason Stark joined the best show ever yesterday. I will call them best show ever if they agree to join the fight for the anti-J.J. Redick war. But Jason Stark talked about what this Phillies team could do and how some people are on the map right now about how they have to perform. Be out. We'll tell you who coming up next. We have today's headlines with Brendan Gunn and a whole lot more. It's Kincade and Salciunas, Connor and for John, 97.5 The Fanatic. 8:05, we have today's headlines with Brendan Gunn. At 8:10, I'm going to play you some audio from Jason Stark, who joined Tyrone and Bill yesterday. Ricky was off yesterday. It was Tyrone and Bill. And he talked about what the Phillies could do at the trade deadline, and he mentions names that we should keep an eye on. I'm sure some of them you can think of. He also gave out some others that we may not be thinking of. But he also talked about two players that are on the map. One that is competing for more of a role, and the other that might be competing for his job, which I find very interesting. Not surprised, but very interesting, because let's face it, when Jason Stark says something, you listen, right?
Absolutely.
You listen to what Jason Stark says, because sometimes he knows more than what a lot of people know.
Most times. I'd go more than sometimes he knows.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Most times. Hall of Famer Jason Stark. So we'll play those clips coming up at 8:10. But one of the things that we got into recently, other than not just the J.J. Redick hate, I do want to know who's joining my side of the fight. Are you on my side of the fight?
Yeah.
Brendan, are you on my side of the fight?
Yeah, I hate that guy. I've hated that guy since 2005 at Duke. Like, I don't even know if I ever liked him when he was here. I mean, I cheered for him, but like, I can't get past that. He just has that
He's got
Duke
that Duke stank
to him.
He's got
It's
that
like,
Duke stank.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Here's the thing, all right? I'm on your side, but I might have to be drafted. Like, I'm not. You and Brendan are going to be on the front lines.
Work on this show. You better you've already stabbed me in the back with Johan Rojas, and I already won that war, even though he went 4 for 4 yesterday for Lehigh Valley. Hit his first career AAA home run yesterday, by the way.
Love that.
Didn't hit because he got called up from AA.
Yes.
You already lost that fight. Like, just
lose that. Stop it. He's going to be back up in a week.
Just join me.
I'm on your side.
Join me on the
but
JJ
you guys
Redick
are on the
fight.
front lines. I don't know if I'm willing to die for this fight, but I'm willing to be in it.
But the other thing we opened up, what Eagles on this current roster could go down as an all-time great at their position? And this stems off of the A.J. Brown realization that I had last week. I want to throw one by you because this is something in a previous life I've had a lot of discourse with somebody I love and respect and did a show with for 5 years.
Okay.
Will Dallas Goedert potentially go? I agree.
No chance.
But
sorry, no chance.
I will say this. Part of it is to no fault of his own.
No.
They don't utilize him enough.
They don't. And also, this is kind of the first time where the Eagles have had this duo level of wide receivers, at least in our lifetime. Like, they've had kind of guys before, but before A.J. Brown, the best receiver that's ever been on this team was T.O. In our lifetime. And then it was like Jeremy Maclin and Deshaun, who were nice guys individually.
Deshaun was great.
Deshaun was very good, but Deshaun was also a specialist kind of guy.
No,
he wasn't a run every route.
No, he was. Deshaun Jackson was very good.
He was very, very good, but he had the deep ball, and he had certain routes he could run, but he's not A.J. Brown. Like, that's a different type of wide receiver. Deshaun's not going over the middle and taking balls away.
No, neither is Tyreek Hill, though.
Right. No, I know. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying it's a different type of... I like a wide receiver who can do everything.
And Deshaun Jackson did a lot.
He did a lot. I'm not knocking Deshaun. I'm saying A.J. Brown and T.O. are in a category of their own.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Deshaun Jackson.
The only other... So the two tight ends, obviously, is... For got to say Pete Retzlaff, all right?
Yes.
1956 to 66,
well,
all right?
Of course, I remember those years fondly.
And then Zach Ertz, obviously, wins the Super Bowl. And, well, the Eagles won the championship with Pete Retzlaff, so I can't forget that either.
Retzlaff is number one.
Retzlaff has actually better numbers. Now, I'm basing strictly off of numbers because I was not around for the 1956-66 Eagles.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Zach Ertz is better.
I don't know. Retzlaff had less receptions, more yards. Just saying. Anyways.
Well, if Retzlaff had Carson Wentz just targeting him every single drive,
exactly.
he might have more catches.
That's true. So can Dallas Goedert get into the conversation? Probably. I think he'd be higher up if he was utilized more. I don't think he has been. And, oh, by the way, to your point, he also has A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to share the load with. So he probably won't be. But that is a guy that I think a lot of people think very highly of that could go down the conversation. For us, it's Zach Ertz. Probably educationally, it is Pete Retzlaff.
When we get back to this, I have another Stone Cold lock.
Okay, love Stone Cold locks. But it's time now for today's headlines with Brendan Gunn.
Today's headlines with Connor Thomas.
What up, B-Gun?
Yo, back at it for another day. So I'll start it off with this. Last night there was a great baseball game on where they honor the Negro Leagues out at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama. It was a game between the San Francisco Giants and the St. Louis Cardinals. It was a great game. They did a whole broadcast pregame stuff, probably better than what they did with the Phillies out in London, unfortunately, because it
was better.
Yeah,
for sure.
because it was the main attraction of the night. I don't know what Major League Baseball was thinking scheduling the Yankees and Dodgers when the Phillies were in London, but regardless. Last night, they had a bunch of stars out there, and Barry Bonds was one of them. And Derek Jeter, who's a host on one of those shows now, he asked him if he could get a hit off one of the Negro League's great pitchers. And this is what Barry Bonds had to say.
Tell me right now, on the spot, what would you do against Satchel Paige?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Gone. You done lost your mind, Jeter. Gone. Simple. Gone. Read about it on ESPN, Fox News, wherever else you want to talk about.
That's incredible.
So you told me, I missed this. I read it. You said Jeter looked upset?
Ken Griffey Jr. looked upset right next to Barry Bonds, shaking his head like, what is this guy talking about? Maybe Barry Bonds probably would hit a home run. He'd hit a home run off anybody. But the fact that he answers so nonchalantly, like, yeah, I'd hit a bomb off Satchel Paige, when they're there on that night honoring that league, it's kind of
that's
not
absolutely
reading the room.
That's the right answer.
He's the greatest hitter in the history of baseball.
There's not a man alive that Barry Bonds couldn't take yard besides Ricky Pitino.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ricky owned him.
Like, seriously, he probably would. Like, I understand. It was a beautiful night, and they were respecting a lot of people. But, go for it, Barry. He's the greatest hitter in the history of baseball.
There has to be a time and place to say that.
No, what is it going to be? His Hall of Fame induction speech? They don't let the guy do anything anymore.
Right.
Well, that's not happening.
Also,
but dude, I mean, you can answer like, Satchel Paige was great. Like, he's one of the all-time best. But I believe in myself, and I'll hit a home run. Not gone.
Oh, come on, dude. Like, if they interviewed me and I said gone, crazy. I should be beat up on the spot. It's Barry Bonds, the greatest hitter of the history of the game.
Yeah, that's
juice or no juice, he's the greatest hitter in the history of baseball.
That's fair. All right.
Or top five, right? Because Ted Williams, I get it.
One thing real quick that I need to ask for baseball on nights like that, though, you need to, if you're going to play at a historic field, play at the dimensions they used to play at. Because they had like a 486-foot center field.
Yeah.
And I was like, when they were describing the dimensions before they showed the new park, I was like, oh, this is going to be sick.
And
and then it was just like a normal field.
Wasn't the Polo Grounds like 280 to left and right, but then it was like 500 to center or something like that?
If you're going to play at a historic ballpark, you play by their dimensions.
That would be really cool.
All right, we're going to move on to a much smaller baseball field and a story from around here that's kind of been a national thing that's been picked up. And I'm going to play this little bit of audio to share my thoughts on it, and then I want to hear yours.
Boo this man!
So, a Springfield Little League parent, Springfield, Montgomery County, he is the target of a flyover banner during a game, and now an investigation is going on. So Springfield Little League in Orland is working through a controversy after a banner downed by an airplane crossing the sky during a game on May 18th has been reported. According to the online petition, the banner targeted a parent who called the Little League to inquire about why the in-house season for the second year in a row was being cut short in favor of beginning summer travel ball.
All right. So I read up on this story. Did you see this?
Yes, I've heard.
All right. Whoever set up the idea of the plane going over the field to mock the parent who wanted to to play out the in-house Little League season. I'm going to say this respectfully. You're a jerk off. Like, I understand that your kid is probably on one of these all-star teams, right? And I imagine the father that had a problem with it, his kid probably isn't on the all-star team. As a kid, I was on the all-star team and was able to do both.
Congrats on your success.
Thank you. Yeah, look at what it got me. We finished out the Little League season with plenty of time to practice for the districts or wherever the first, round of the all-star thing is. I know that travel ball has taken over the world by storm almost too much, I think. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, you got to donate your arm to afford this kind of stuff. This guy was like, you ended the season 2 straight years.
Right.
You don't play playoffs? Like,
that's BS.
That's un-American. You fit like what? Are we just doing whoever had the best record wins the championship? Like, that's dumb. And for you to try to publicly embarrass the dad who had the balls to stick up for a lot of kids, because let's face it, not every kid makes the All-Star team. It's probably like a 15-player roster. A Little League has like 10 teams with 12 kids. That means there's like 80 kids who just go, oh,
I guess I'm done playing baseball.
I guess I'm done playing baseball. Little League, I'm sorry. I love every team that wins the Little League World Series. They have that memory for life. Odds are your Springfield Little League team is not going to win something. Okay, so little Timmy, who you want to give some extra time to practice before the All-Star start, if you're 0 for 4 against media and you lose in the first round, was it really worth taking away the finale of your in-house Little League? I loved Little League baseball. You know why? Because if you beat your team, if you beat the team that you were playing, you got to say crap to them in the hallway the next day at school.
Dude, ultimately, they're robbing their own kids from more baseball because they're probably going to go and lose in the first 2 games of the district or the sectional, whatever it is. They're going to lose. And by the way, the banner doxed the guy. It called him out by name. That's why I didn't read what the banner said.
It called out the guy's name who stood up for the kids that don't make the All-Star team. If you have such a problem with the in-house Little League, then don't have your kid playing it.
Go somewhere else.
Well, there's a million travel ball teams. So pay out the wazoo. Have them play for the travel ball team. They don't have to play for the in-house Little League. For you to determine, all right, Little League's over. I have the power. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
And, this isn't trophy society. Everybody gets a chance. That's freaking Little League, dude. No. You have a 0.00001% chance of your kid actually making it to the show just because they played in the Little. How many kids have played in the Little League World Series that didn't even probably play in college?
Dude, I mean, honestly, this I don't want to make too broad of a statement, but this kind of parent making it to the show, the kid's going to quit in high school because you're just making them play way too much. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
when I read this story, and people probably thought it was funny that they called out the dad. I thought that was so wrong, man.
Right.
It disgusted me, especially because it's a local story. Even if it wasn't a local story, it would disgust me. But listen, dude, you might be listening to the show right now. Thanks for listening. Why would you do that? Why? And I'm sure he didn't pay for it himself. I'm sure you had a couple of your buddies, drinking your Miller Lights one night. Oh, dude, let's pay for a plane to go over to publicly ridicule a guy who wanted his kid to finish the Little League.
It's no light price tag either. It's $650 to $1,200 to fly that over.
That's just
what did you get out of that?
Sorry, you're a loser. I don't know what to tell you.
It's messed up though. You're a jerk off. Jerk off. Right. I'll say it again. You're not a good human being if you're gonna do that. I get it. You're appeasing probably 15 kids. God willing, two parents, right? So you're appeasing, I don't know, 50 to 100 people, and you're just spitting in the face of maybe 100 to 300 people, including kids.
Right. It's just
kids.
This is very open and shut.
Dude, I still talk about Little League with some of my best friends. I'm going to a wedding tonight. My man Kyle. Congratulations, Kyle. Can't wait. Kyle was on my Little League baseball team every single year. We still talk about the time he had a game-winning double. Kyle's an interesting kid. He had no idea he had a game-winning double. So we all run out to celebrate with him. He's like, "Get off the field! You're gonna get us kicked out or whatever." We're like,
"Dude, you just won the game."
Dude, you just won the game. We still talk about that. Kyle, I love you. He was never good enough to be on the All-Star team, right? But we still have that memory. What if? Oh, sorry, season's over. We got to practice for All-Stars.
It's just miserable. It should never happen.
When I saw that story, I'll be honest, I got pissed off. It was wrong.
It was terrible. When Petrilli told me about it yesterday, I was, what are we talking about? Dude, you're robbing your kids of just having fun on their own. They're not going to win the district, most likely, but they could win the in-house league, and they'll remember that the rest of their lives.
And I'm just wondering what the parents who ended the league season early got out of it. Was it you gave yourself some extra time? Or was it because you wanted them to practice more for something odds are they're not going to win?
Right. Whatever it was the wrong decision. There is no justification.
And to publicly shame the guy. If anything, the other guy should be shamed. The guy that's ending Little League early
Yeah.
Because little Timmy needs some extra reps in the cage before All-Stars?
That's up there with Grinch That Stole Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah. Same wavelength.
Like, dude, some of these... Look, we probably all know them. Some of these Little League parents, like when we were in Little League.
Yeah, insane.
The worst.
Like,
the worst.
What are you doing, dude? Anyways, all right. Get off my soapbox. Little League is just, like, it's iconic.
I know.
I'm picking a question out of that.
All right,
I know.
please.
People try and ruin it, though.
All right, here we go. First beer you ever had?
Oh, great question. Salciunas?
First sip of beer, I actually know. We talked about this. No, you weren't here. I know exactly the first sip of beer I ever took.
Okay.
And I was 8 years old. And I was in Chicago at the Grand Duke's restaurant, which is a Lithuanian restaurant.
Nice.
And I had Švyturys, which is like the Miller Lite of Lithuania. Like it's the biggest brewed beer in Lithuania.
Right.
I was 8 years old, and my dad said, "You know what? You got to try. While we're here, you got to try it." Because he didn't know if we could find it locally. So, first sip of beer was a Lithuanian beer when I was 8 years old.
Did you like it?
No, I said I was never going to drink in my life. And boy, was I wrong.
You know, it's funny. So mine, I forget how old I was. I was probably like 10 or 11 or something. I was young, and my dad used to drink Heineken, so he let me try one of his. And he got so mad at me because I took a sip, and it tasted awful. And my immediate reaction was spit it back into the bottle.
Oh, no.
and I ruined the beer, and he got so mad. It's like, you got to be kidding me. What are you doing? I had to throw out the beer, wasted a good Heine, and then the next thing you know, next one wasn't until I was 21, though, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Begun?
Dude, it was a warm Yingling, which
What?
my grandfather drank him, so we just had him like in the garage for when he would come over. And it was like, I don't know, like 8th grade or something. I thought me and the boys would try one beer, dude.
And you tried a warm one.
Warm Yingling. It was foul.
Yeah,
like
that's
disgusting.
Yeah.
Almost
going with the warm beer is a horrible choice.
I'm willing to wager in the history of the world, nobody's ever had a good first beer.
Dude, honestly, nowadays they might. People that like IPAs and stuff.
Yeah, acquired taste.
That's
grow
true.
into
Yeah,
it.
'cause
I don't
I'm
think
not- I'm
anyone's
not that
first
big.
sip of beer is ever good.
Okay, I was gonna say like a seltzer, but like those aren't. It's not
Doesn't
beer.
count. No.
Actually, isn't it? Well, it's malted liquor.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll figure it out.
So I'll play the Jason Stark audio coming up. I'm sorry. I was pissed off by the Little League thing.
You
and
were.
like I couldn't help myself. Maybe it's because I'm a dad now or something. Like maybe that's what it is. You know, even though Coop's gonna be drafted when he's like 16.
Wow.
But I couldn't believe it. I know VT Ron wants to talk about it. What's up, Ronnie?
Andrew, what's going on, man? Long time I haven't talked to you.
It's been a while. It's great to hear your voice. Dude, how wrong is that? That's so freaking wrong.
Andrew, I don't know where the guy, first of all, comes off with the balls to do something like that. You're talking about 8, 10, 12-year-old kids and parents who are just watching their kid play ball. If you don't make the team, you do something like that? Are you kidding me? Are you coming from an athletic background, Andrew? You and I have that. To do that, that's a disgrace. I'm sorry. That's an outright flat disgrace.
Yeah, it's horrible. Like we all know the kid that played right field that wasn't any good in Little League, but he was there every single game. And what?
That's right.
Oh, hey, sorry, kiddo. You're not good enough. I know we haven't played playoffs yet, but we got to get ready for the All-Star team, so pack your bags. Like, that's horrible.
It is. And you know what? That's something to be said for house ball. You hit it right on the head. I know my two grandkids, they both play travel, but they also play house. And house is just as important to that kid that can't play as well as some other kid on the team.
Absolutely.
Give the kid a chance to play ball.
And if the Little League season is too much for your schedule, then just don't have them playing it.
Don't have them play. Exactly right. Don't have them play, Find a league that the kid that isn't mandatorily having to go to the game and just hang in there like that. It's revolting.
And seriously, I played travel ball. I played baseball 365. I played in an indoor league. Connor, you've played baseball your entire life.
Every which way.
Some of my favorite memories was getting a hit off of the kid that was in my science class.
Yeah.
And being able to say something to him the next day.
Exactly. You get him in the hallway. Hey, you know what? You throw that hanging curve. Next time I'm taking it out of the park.
Right. Like, and you're I don't know, man. It bothers that story bothered me so much, Ronnie. And I'm sorry. I appreciate the call we're up against. I would love to. I could talk to Ron literally for hours. He's a very nice man. All right, I'll get off the Little League story, unless people want to discuss it. Because feel free. I would look. This guy deserves to get ripped.
Yes, he does.
He deserves to be ripped on the radio, TV, whatever. I saw Crossing Broad did a story on it. This guy deserves to get ripped. Anyways, coming up next. We continue the conversation. Jason Stark was on with the best show ever. 2 players that are on the map right now for the Phillies that need to start playing well, and players to keep an eye on for the trade deadline. It's Kincade and Salciunas. Connor in for John today right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
An NLCS rematch. I'm Brett.
Air, AVELO Air.com.
All right, it is 8:30 on Kincade and Salciunas. Connor in for John today. B. Gunn sitting in his seat. I do not apologize for my rant on the Little League World Series, or not the Little League World Series, the Springfield Little League saga. You know, I don't apologize.
No, you shouldn't have to because you're on the right side of it. I'm just like, you're really, really on the Little League thing.
I am, because it bothers me.
It should.
Sorry, Bob Cooney. I forgot to go shake Bob's hand during that break.
It's unbelievable.
That's my fault.
See, too obsessed with the Little League parents.
It bothers
now
me.
It
bothers me.
You're missing things.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll keep you up to date on that story because it's a local one. All right. So I was so hot and heavy that I did not get to the Jason Stark audio that I promised you. So yesterday, Jason Stark, we'll start with cut one there, B-Gun. Jason Stark was on with the best show ever. And they got into a conversation, obviously, about the trade deadline. And he talked about a player who's currently getting basically an opportunity to prove that he can play a position for the next month until they get to the trade deadline. And that player is Brandon Marsh. You'll also hear in this clip names that we should keep an eye on.
The Phillies are kicking tires on outfielders who could make an impact. I'm sure you've heard these names. You'll definitely be hearing Luis Roberts' name, Brent Rooker in Oakland, Jake McCarthy if the Diamondbacks sell, Taylor Ward, sure the Angels will sell. It could be any of those names. It could be somebody else. There's just not a lot of sellers yet. We should also remember the Braves are looking for the same thing now with Ronald Acuna out. So I think the other interesting question is what position they would target. I thought about that yesterday when that ball skipped past Brandon Marsh. Is he a center fielder long term? I think he has a month to answer that question.
So that's a very interesting point, right? Because we're just talking about Johan Rojas gets sent down, and my first thought is, all right, so this tells you that they're clearly going to trade for a starting outfielder. And I first think center field right away. My first thought is center field. But Brent Rooker, a name that he brings up, who has upside. I mean, he's already 29, but he's been playing with the A's. He's a left fielder. He's not a center fielder. He's a corner outfielder. He could play left or he could play right. And so if you trade for him, you're not putting him in center field. So that still means that you need a starting center fielder. So it could be Brandon Marsh, or it could be Rojas comes back up, and you're going to ultimately platoon the two of them. And the days that Brandon Marsh starts, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets replaced defensively, or he moves over to left or right.
Yeah.
And then Rojas finishes the game in center field, and either Rooker or Castellanos get pulled for defensive purposes.
Makes sense. It's not ideal, though.
No, it's not. Because now you're trading for basically a guy that you're not going to have out for 9 innings.
Yeah. Right. It doesn't. This is why we had to talk about urgency, right? That's the perfect example with those names that Jason Stark lists in there. This is why I don't have urgency yet on the outfield spots, because there's just not that name. There's one name out there that I think is the difference maker. That's Luis Robert.
Luis Robert, yeah.
And all that I've heard about what they want is a Juan Soto type package, what the Nationals got when they moved.
Which I will say is ridiculous.
Insane.
And I wouldn't do, because that's just way too much. Even though I'm Mr. Give Up Prospects, I don't care.
Right.
That's also a great asking price in the middle of June.
Well, speaking of Juan Soto, does the prospect of getting him next offseason kind of scare you away from giving up prospects at the trade deadline this year?
I heard I don't think Kevin Cooney talked about this yesterday. He was talking about the Juan Soto package, and my first thought was he is a free agent after this year.
Right.
And he's been tagged, like the Phillies have been tagged to him. Now, I can't see the Yankees letting him leave.
Yeah, but
I really can't.
Here's the other thing, right? If he's a free agent next year, if he actually gets out there and gets a chance to move to other teams, what is he going to play center? Like, you're probably going to look to again offload Castellanos' contract and put him in right field.
Yeah,
and as much as
I'm a center fielder.
Yeah, as much as I defend Nick Castellanos, Juan Soto's a better baseball player.
Not even close. Yeah,
so it doesn't change what you're doing at this deadline. It doesn't change anything with prospects because you're not trading for him. Like, no, that doesn't affect anything.
So, look, Brent Rooker is an intriguing name, but then that still leaves the hole in center field. I found it fascinating that he says if the Angels sell, they trade Taylor Ward. And it's like, first off, why wouldn't the Angels sell?
Because they're stupid?
They are such a dumb franchise. They are such a stupid, dumb franchise. And the funny thing is that Jason Stark mentions Taylor Ward and not Mike Trout.
Right.
Mike Trout, this guy must just be very happy to be there.
Or they're holding him hostage. Have we checked? Can someone ask Mike Trout to blink twice the next time he's on the Weather Channel?
It's a good point to see if he's doing okay. I know he's hurt, but really? He wouldn't be potentially on the market. So that was interesting, but it's a good point made by the Hall of Famer Jason Stark that Brandon Marsh basically has a month to prove whether or not he can play center field. And look, so far defensively, not so great.
Right.
With the bat, he's obviously better than Johan Rojas. I guess they would make a decision over the next month. Is his bat good enough to replace the defense that Johan Rojas provides, and that they can go for a corner outfielder?
And that doesn't mean Marsh can't play left.
Right. Marsh can still play left.
Center field position.
Right, absolutely. Which means you would then have to trade for, you wouldn't trade for Brent Rooker to play center field. You're not going to do that. So if you're looking for center field specifically, that takes some of those names off the board. Because there were some players that have been mentioned over the last couple of weeks that could be available via trade deadline. They're not center fielders. And then you just go back to the conversation we had before the season even started, and that's kind of why Johan Rojas was just kind of given the job, because you had nobody else to play center field. Now, the other clip I find fascinating, even though I shouldn't, but take a listen to what he says, Jason Stark does, about Whit Merrifield.
They are telling you by how he's been used that they're concerned by what they're saying. And he's another guy, I think he's got a month to try to figure this out. And then if there's an upgrade out there, they might do that.
And do that, I'm guessing, is DFA, because, look, Brandon Marsh, if he doesn't win the center fielding job, he's a platoon player in left field.
Right.
Whit Merrifield, if he doesn't get sent down to AAA.
No.
He's gone.
But could you trade him? Would he be a piece that he's got a team option for the next year of his deal? I don't know if anyone would take him.
I really don't think so.
Yeah.
Unless you're just trying to do salary stuff, but baseball, it's not like basketball where you're offloading salary.
Exactly. It's such a weird spot to have him in, because I still believe, he's been bad this year, but I still believe that he could have a hot enough stretch where he could be valuable. It's not like he's David Dahl, where good since 2019.
Right. I'll be honest, I am extremely, extremely shocked how bad he's been.
Right.
I thought it was a tremendous move. A guy that could play, he could probably start 80-some games at different positions like he has in his career. And he's a guy that could come off the bench in certain situations, like, let's say, if you wanted to pinch hit for Johan Rojas at some point. I thought Merrifield was a great pickup. I will still say, just because it has not worked out, it was at the time, it was a great pickup.
Right, and it still could be at some point this year. Remember where we're at in the season. We still have a long way to go. So I'm not ready to
But if he only has a month, he only has a month.
Well, he only has a month because of the trade deadline. If the trade deadline was in September, he would have that much time. They would give him the time to figure it out. But there's a point where you have to say, this is the end of the line, and we've got to make a move in case you don't come out of it. So, yeah, got to agree with Jason there. That's a tough spot.
And I'm sure he's heard a few things, being that he is the great Jason Stark. All right, so you can climb in 610-632-0975. You can call in or you can text in. We have a lot of stuff in store for you today. I'll reset the entire show coming up next. So you know what? While we have a couple minutes, let's go to another question out of the hat. Next segment, we reset the topics and we get back to the text line. We have a 9 o'clock hour where you will have plenty of time to chime in. But what do we have on the questions out of the hat there, Brendan?
Thing that always gets under your skin and you can't get over it.
It's a tough one for me. I don't get annoyed with very much.
I get annoyed by a lot, but I can't think of number one.
Always gets under.
Should I pull another one?
No, I want to think of it.
Do you have one off the top of your head? You can lead us off.
I don't.
We need John here for this one. John would have
everything gets under his skin.
See, I'm trying to think of obviously there are things that my wife does that bother me, but I'm not about to out her.
There's one thing that would lead to me, I never want to make a scene or have a negative social interaction with anybody. There's one thing that makes me want to yell at someone in public, and it happens relatively often.
Speakerphone in public.
No.
Because that's one that bothers me.
No, I can ignore that, no problem.
Okay.
If I hold the door for you, you better say thank you. If you just clean walk on through the door without a thank you a head nod, like any type of acknowledgement. Like you're God's gift to the Wawa. Like, no. If someone holds the door for you, you say thank you to them. That bothers me, and it makes me want to just yell, "You're welcome," as they walk through.
Good answer.
Ridiculous.
All right, I will say this. All right. I'm allowed to speak on this because I'm a parent.
Okay.
I have a child.
Congrats.
And I know this time will come. As adults, we are more skilled at certain things because kids just, they don't have the intellect yet to do certain things.
Right.
So I was at the ShopRite the other day. I had to pick up 2 things at the ShopRite. 2 things. So, of course, I'm not going to stand in line at one of the cashier things. So I go to the self-checkout. It's packed. Busy day. It was one of the busy weekends. One of the holidays. It might have been Memorial Day weekend. I don't know. Shame on me for going. But it's one of those things where you forget, oh, we need to get 2 more things. And there's a lady letting her kid do the self-checkout.
Oh, my God.
And it's bleep, bleep. And I'm like, move it along. Move it. Like, look at the line.
Dude, I'll build on top of that. If you're going into the self-checkout with the shopping cart full of stuff, kick rocks, dude. Go somewhere else. I'm here getting my iced tea and my toothpaste. I should be in here for 30 seconds.
It depends on the amount of self-checkout registers. So I had that exact same take when I lived in Manayunk, and my closest grocery store was the Acme, and they only had 2 self-checkout counters at the beginning. Only 2. And there'd be a person that would go with the full shopping cart. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I came here for a bag of coffee, and I'm waiting behind you. You could have at least let me go in front of you because I only have one thing. But like ShopRite, my local ShopRite has 20. There's 10 on each side.
That's fair.
So that's a little bit more fair. But I completely agree with you, depending on the amount of self-checkout registers. All right. Coming up next, we reset the show. We'll get to your text messages. Rest of the show, no more guests or anything, so it's the conversations on hand. Would love to hear from you. 610-632-0975. It is Kincade and Salciunas. Connor in for John today, right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Now, around the bases with Andrew Salciunas.
Spoke with Bob Cooney during the commercial break. He is back in the saddle today. He was out yesterday. He was at the Michael Barkan golf outing.
Yeah.
Charity golf outing. So
I hear it's a great event.
Yep, we were not invited.
Maybe next year.
Maybe next year, Connor. But Bobby will be back today, coming up at 10 o'clock, so make sure you're listening to the midday show. All right, so here's what we've been talking about today. I'll reset the show now so that we know exactly what we're getting into for the entire 9 o'clock hour on this Fanatic Friday. So we opened the show talking about the Philadelphia Phillies as they begin a 3-game series with the Arizona Diamondbacks today. And when I saw it on the schedule, my first thought was, oh my God, I am not over what happened last year. And I will never get over it. If I'm being completely honest with you, I will never get over the NLCS last season, even if they win the World Series this year. Because if they win the World Series this year, they're a dynasty, right? If they won last year, they're a dynasty. If they win the World Series last year and this year, because I believe that they should have or could have beaten the Texas Rangers in the World Series, even though they were red hot, scorching hot. So I don't know if it's a lock. I believe, and speaking to a lot of people in the Phillies organization, they believe they could have beaten the Texas Rangers, which is why they've come in this season with the attitude that they've had, and I've really appreciated it. And they've backed it up. To their credit, they have completely backed it up. So I'm never going to get over that. But it also tells me that they better be aggressive at the trade deadline, because I can't go into a postseason facing inferior teams, which they will be, other than the Dodgers. It's the one team I will not call inferior to the Phillies. If they lose to any of those teams, there's a reason why they lost. I would rather give myself more chances to win. So acquiring a Luis Robert Jr. gives me a better chance to win than waiting if Andrew Painter becomes something 2 years from now.
Right, but there are levels to aggressiveness.
I got you.
And some people are too far on the other end of that, and I think it's because they're scared of a specter of something that doesn't exist with this team. I'm not telling you the approach of this team is perfect. I'm not telling you they're infallible. I'm not telling you they're a lock to go to the World Series and win it. No, I understand they're concerned with the team, but they're to a very, very minor level, even compared to last year's team. And I think that the reason that I'm excited about this series is it gives you a chance to think about last year and this year and compare the two. And in my mind, this team is significantly better than last year's.
Well, and they are, but that doesn't make me feel any bit better about last year at all. At all. Okay. It does, like the hot start, just because we didn't see hot starts the last 2 years, does not wash away the failure.
It's not about washing it away. It's not about saying that didn't happen.
It doesn't make me feel better.
It's about saying that, hey, this is proof that this year won't. That's all I'm saying.
All right, this is going to be a crazy, crazy example. All right,
I'm buckled up.
Okay, very personal.
All right.
So my grandmother died on my birthday. Jeez. Like 4 years ago. 3 years ago. This will be the fourth year. She died on my birthday. Okay.
4 years in a row?
Broke my heart, right? I loved my grandma. The next year, because nobody died on my birthday, did that make it that's all right. It's all right that she died on my birthday last year.
I don't think I could argue back against this example.
That's what I'm saying.
Because of this, but there are people in this fan base that are saying, because that happened last year, then on this birthday, another of your relatives is going to die. And I'm just like, it's not a rational way. That's not a rational way of thinking.
Like, I didn't wake up on my birthday the following year going, all right, let me check my phone.
Yeah. I'm not saying
did somebody die? Like, no, I didn't. I didn't do that. But like, it didn't all of a sudden make the birthday so much better.
I'm not saying don't be upset about last year. I'm saying looking at this year as a repeat of last year is insane. This is a different team with a different focus, with a different ability about them, and they've proven that to this point compared to last couple teams. And I think this is a time where people are going to be thinking back. So if you're thinking about that series last year, it's a time for me to bring up why it won't happen this year.
Okay. All right. So we're doing that. We're also talking about the Sixers offseason. Already seems to be getting off to a little shaky start. I ask you to vent if you want to vent. Also, if you have a plan, and one of those plans was Paul George, that might be off the table. According to reports, I don't believe it to be totally off the table, but it's something that people have already talked about. Alex Caruso is gone. Zach LaVine is a name that's been popped up, but there's been mixed reporting about whether or not the Sixers are in on him. It's been a bit of a shaky start already. We're only in June.
I still got to give you my guy, by the way.
Oh, yeah. You have a guy that you want to give. All right. You'll give me that coming up next. And the third topic that we got into, A.J. Brown, I said this to you guys last week, could very well go down as the greatest wide receiver in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. Lane Johnson probably is already the greatest right tackle in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. Brandon Graham will go down in the conversation as one of the greatest edge rushers in Eagles franchise history. I don't think he beats out Reggie White, but in terms of impact and what he did for the franchise as well, he goes into that conversation. Are there other players that could potentially go down as an all-time Eagle great? Whether it's top 1, 2, or 3. Let us know, 610-632-05. You told me that you have a lock.
Yes.
All right, so coming up next, Connor will give us one of the names that the Sixers should go after. And no, it's not LeBron James, because we all have LeBron James on our mind. And the lock in terms of that Eagles franchise record holder, franchise best conversation. And we'll get more questions out of the hat. It's Fanatic Friday. Kincade Salciunas, Connor in for John today, 97.5 The Fanatic. It's 9 o'clock on Kincade and Salciunas. Hope you had a nice, safe trip into work today because I forgot to mention it at 8 o'clock.
You know, I thought about it at 7, and I realized it was too early, and then I forgot to tell you at 8.
Well, I hope you had a nice, safe trip. A lot of you may not have even driven into work because it's a Friday, so a lot of people work remotely on Friday. So I hope you have a nice Friday. We got the weekend coming up. Best show ever coming your way at 2 o'clock. Midday show with Bob Cooney coming up at 10, which means we got an hour left till the weekend.
Yeah, can we also say stay cool? It's going to be so damn hot this weekend. It's going to be like 97, dude.
Isn't it kind of going down this weekend?
Nah.
Is it really? I thought
Yeah, tomorrow's the hottest day of the stretch.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
Jesus.
so stay inside.
So I got I'm going to a wedding tonight, and it's 5:30, and I felt so bad. The wonderful bride texted all the male guests, like, "Hey, if you don't want to wear like a suit jacket, like you're good." And I feel bad. Like it's like this is the best day of her life, right? And weddings are classy, right? Unless you're in West Virginia. And
you were
some of the pictures, Haley.
You just show up like that, dude.
yeah, exactly. But weddings are classy, and it's at a very nice, it's a beautiful place that we're going to, and I feel bad. Like she basically said, like, look, if you want to like show up in like basically a short sleeve dress shirt, like go for it. I'm not gonna look. I'm telling you right now, I'm wearing a suit jacket.
Wow, showing off now.
The jacket's gonna quickly come off.
Yeah.
But I almost want to, out of respect, wear the suit jacket.
That's the right way to do it. And then you just pop it off as soon as the ceremony's done.
Yeah.
Undo the tie, put it around your head, have yourself a time.
Is this weird? I have not gone tie recently.
Yeah, I always go tie if I'm going to a wedding.
I usually go suit jacket and then the top button unbuttoned.
I mean, either way, that's fine. That's not a big deal.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like, is the tie really necessary?
The tie may be dying.
Is the tie seriously? Is a tie necessary? Like belt, yes, obviously.
I don't know what is and isn't. We can ask Kincade when he gets back.
Jeez, no, I don't want to get into wedding. I don't want to get into wedding etiquette.
1300.
I hope I'm never at a wedding with John. Because I feel like the whole time I'll look over and he'll be staring at me like taking note, like, all right,
seeing if you're doing things the right way.
Andrew's using the entree fork during the salads, huh?
Johan Rojas would have caught that bouquet.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like I'd be getting judged the entire time. All right, so Brendan, what kind of texts do we have coming in? Our topics on hand today: Phillies, Dbacks. Are you over the series? I'm obviously not. Has the start of the Phillies made you feel any better? It has not, even though I love what the Phillies are doing. We're obviously trade deadline conversation still going on. The Sixers offseason, the all-time Eagles greats. We'll get Connor's answers in a second. But what do we have on the text line today, B-Gun?
All right, so as far as the Phils go, we got Eddie and Delco checking in. He says, I'll never forget walking out of Citizens Bank Park after Game 7 last year in dead silence and depression. I'll never forget that. But high hopes for this year, and hopefully they go out there and get a reliever and an outfielder or two at the deadline.
I'd be curious. The people that talk about walking out of the vet, the Eagles-Buccaneers game, like they say it was the worst walk out of a building of their life, dead silent. Eagles are number one in this city, and oh, by the way, they had not yet to win a Super Bowl, and that was supposed to be the year. They were going to.
Stadium was closing.
Yeah, stadium was closing. They were going to beat the Raiders. They weren't going to lose to the Raiders. You saw what the Bucs did. The Bucs, what, they scored 40 points, I'm pretty sure, in that Super Bowl against the Raiders. Like, it wasn't even close. The Phillies, everything after the dancing on my own, the 2022 Phillies, like, you expected them to beat the Texas Rangers. And oh, by the way, it wasn't a one-off. Right, like the Eagles lost to the Bucs. Shockingly, one game. The Phillies had 2 chances to win in what is considered the greatest playoff atmosphere in sports. Both of them.
Yeah.
I want to know, in comparison, I'd be curious because I did not walk out. I was also only 8 years old.
I bet you there has to be someone who was at both.
And how close was it?
Right.
Like that feeling of walking out of the link when they lost to the Bucs, the same as walking out of Citizens Bank Park when the Phillies lost Game 7 to the Dbacks. It might still be worse for the Eagles, but I wonder how far.
I don't know if there's a guy alive that did both because I did Game 7 last year. If some guy did 2002 against the Bucks and that, he's probably 6 feet under because that feeling was unbearable, dude. Like it was dead silence. Everyone's, just ticked off. A bunch of fights almost broke out from fans yelling at each other because they don't know how to handle it, dude. A couple weird Eagles chants. Like, nobody wants to hear that when the Phillies lose.
No.
And then, it was just bare depression, dude. Like, Jake Cave made the final out in the NLCS when nobody else could put the ball in play. Like, Bryce Harper almost repeated Bedlam at the bank. Maybe in a July night it goes out.
Right.
Dude.
That's one of those he just missed it, but it ended up going like 280 feet.
It was like zombies. It was 45,000 zombies walking to the subway, walking to their cars. Like nobody was saying a word unless it was F you to another fan because they were that mad.
They had runners in scoring position in what? The seventh and eighth innings?
Yeah.
I think they had runners in scoring position 2 of the last 3 innings.
Yeah. You just needed to get Schwarber to the plate.
It's okay, boys. It's not okay, but it's okay.
No, it's not okay.
It's not okay, but it's okay.
All right. Give us one more text, then I want to hear from you, Connor.
All right. I feel like this guy might be stealing Connor's thunder as far as the Eagles' great goes, but we'll see if Connor's on the same page. Unless Jake Elliott's leg falls off, he will be the all-time greatest Eagles kicker. When I'm strongly considering getting a kicker's jersey, you're the GOAT.
Absolutely correct.
He's already the GOAT. Dude, he's third in points scored in franchise history. He has the Super Bowl kick.
And who's first?
David Akers.
Yeah.
I could make a strong case for David Akers.
Who has better moments?
I could make a strong case that David Akers is in the conversation. David Akers had some really, really big kicks for this team and was incredibly consistent.
Has he ever lost you a playoff game? Jake Elliott, that is.
No, but hold on a second. Let's not do revisionist history here. At one point, we wanted to release Jake Elliott.
Yeah, like his third year or something, third or fourth year.
Well, hold on. Go back to the Super Bowl. He missed an extra point in the Super Bowl.
That is true.
That almost came. If Gronk comes down with it, and they get the 2-point conversion, you go to overtime
because of that miss.
If Jake Elliott just makes it, so like there was a point, and look, he has since been freaking amazing.
Yeah,
but there was at one point. I remember bringing up a statistic on the air. From like 50 and beyond, he couldn't miss. But from like 30 to 40, there was a year where like he was horrible. And I'm like, well, these are the ones like
you gotta have.
You gotta make those ones. Like you're in field goal range. And
you gotta start taking like 10-yard delay of game penalties.
Right.
To kick from 50.
Just to get to his range, apparently.
But the moment against the Texans when Nick Foles drives you down to save the season again the year after the Super Bowl, the 60-yarder against the Giants, the field goal against the Bills last year, making that kick in the Super Bowl. Like I just feel like Jake Elliott has the moments, and he's already third in all-time points scored, and he's like 3 seasons
there's
away.
He's going to be the guy.
I can't say he is already.
Exactly.
You're saying that he is already.
I'm ready to make that jump. Like the moments are there compared to David Akers.
Now, leagues have changed. So we were actually kind of talking about this during the break because I guessed what your answer was going to be. They don't kick field goals as often. Teams would rather go for it on 4th and 4 in field goal range than kick the field goal. And so Jake Elliott might lose out on points. So he might not reach what David Akers did, but may have ended up having a more impactful career.
But there's no world where this isn't an argument that he could be an all-time great. So he's in this conversation.
He's in the conversation. All right, so that was your answer for the lock Eagle. Can you give me another guy that you wrote down 6?
Yes, so I had 6 in addition to Lane Johnson and Brandon Graham, who I think are all.
So we had Lane Johnson, Brandon Graham. Was A.J. Brown written down?
Yeah.
All right, A.J. Brown, obviously Jake Elliott.
Yep.
And you had Saquon.
Devontae Smith, Saquon.
Oh, so we have all 6.
And Hurts. So we have one more. I had 8 total. There's one more.
Who?
Defensive side of the ball.
Darius Slay?
Nope.
98.
Oh, Jalen Carter?
Jalen Carter. It's very, very early. Do you have any faith that what we saw last year are the flashes of greatness?
Look, Fletcher Cox could very well go to Canton.
Yeah.
So
very well should go to Canton.
Yeah. So like
it's
after one
right?
It's impossible. I don't think I can even.
That's the toughest one on here. But let's do it this way. Would it surprise you if we fast forwarded 15 years?
No, because he was supposed to go top 3 had he not had the situation
unfold. And
the Eagles acquired him in the back end of the top 10.
And we didn't see anything last year that proved against that way of thinking.
Right.
So, I don't know. If you have a guy that in 15 years, it would not surprise you if he put together a Hall of Fame level career. A lot has to go right. But does that count for this discussion?
Look, everything goes in this discussion. He very well could. My only thing, that's going to be really hard because Fletcher Cox, people have said if Aaron Donald wasn't in this league, it would be no question that Fletcher Cox was the best interior defensive lineman during that era. It's just
for 12 years.
He got overshadowed by Aaron Donald, who is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Right.
Fletcher Cox was really good, man.
Yeah, he was. I'm not taking anything away from him. This is a very, very early projection.
Does that make it harder, though? Like the Goddard discussion, he was following in Zach Ertz's shadow.
Well,
where a lot of people
we're
think
talking all-time greats, dude. We're talking all-time greats.
It's harder to follow the guy than it is to follow the guy that follows the guy. If you're picking up what I'm saying, it's harder to be the next guy up than it is to not be the guy
because
following
you're supposed to be the replacement, right? It is kind of easier for A.J. Brown right now in terms of these conversations because there have been so many bad wide receivers since Deshaun Jackson, right? There have been a lot of bad wide receivers here.
So he's going to go out and be compared to Fletcher Cox. Is he giving you enough that Fletcher Cox did? Meanwhile, if he was a couple years later down the line, then you just be comparing him to himself. It's a little bit harder for him to reach that all-time great status because he's following up in a Hall of Famer's footsteps.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, but I figured that was a name that was interesting to mention.
Look, it's something definitely to be keeping an eye on throughout his entire career because they drafted him high. They traded up for him. I know it was only one spot, but they traded up for him, and he was a guy that was supposed to be a top 3 pick, had stuff not been going on while he was in college.
Is there anyone I'm missing?
Landon Dickerson.
You think? Oh, it's an interesting one.
A couple Pro Bowls already. He can go out there. I think he has the capability of being one of the best guards in the league, being an All-Pro for years to come. He's still young.
He was paid to be the highest paid guard for a week or two until I think he got surpassed.
As long as Jeff Stoutland's here, I don't see him falling off a cliff.
Interesting.
It is definitely interesting. I mean, that's a great answer in terms of guards. I mean, look, there's guards that go back to when running the football was only thing they did.
Right.
And look, I wasn't around for the 60s and 70s and 80s of offensive linemen. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good answer. I mean, he's been tremendous so far through his career.
So those are 9 names that we've mentioned so far that at least beg a question. Some more so than others.
Right. I don't think anybody's going to say that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is going to go down as the greatest safety in Eagles franchise history, right?
Yeah.
Very good player. But nobody's going to say that he's going to end up being better than Brian Dawkins.
You want to know what's nuts?
What's nuts?
Of those 9 names that were listed.
All on offense except for one?
Two. And one of them is Brandon Graham, who's having a swan song year.
Right, exactly.
And the other one is a guy who's only played 1 year that we're crazy projecting because he was drafted high. How does that make you feel about the Eagles' defense?
Wow. The Eagles also have a historic defense.
Yeah, I got you.
I rip the Buddy Ryan stuff all the time. That defense was.
But there's nobody even we're thinking about putting in the conversation. Not just proclaiming him as an all-time great.
Well,
Nobody that's
one guy just retired that was in the conversation. One guy is on his swan song season that's in the conversation.
Yeah, but there's no linebacker. There's probably
that's
no
also
interior
that's also the league.
Line.
The league's changed.
There's no defensive backs.
Right, but the league's changed. You're not going to have a linebacker that's ever going to be in that conversation unless you draft him, and he's very good for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Yeah, and to be fair, there's a couple of rookies, and a lot of these guys on the defense were free agents, so it's hard to make your way to an all-time great in a franchise as a free agent.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, well, that just shows you how much turnover there's been with this defense, or at least the past year, there's been a lot of youth infused.
All right, let's also, I don't want to forget the Sixers conversation. So you have a guy, because right now, if you haven't been following along the NBA slop already, Alex Caruso is already being traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I know a lot of people had Alex Caruso on their list. He's gone. Paul George, there have been reports that it seems like the opportunity of him coming to Philadelphia might be waning. And that was, by all reports, for a year now. Right? He was still playing with the Clippers. Right. I don't think the season started yet. And there are eyes on Paul George to come here to Philadelphia. That might be off the table. So some of the top names that people wanted are already dwindling. So who's the name that you have that the Sixers could go after that would make us all feel good about ourselves?
It might not make you feel good about it because you have this thing that I'm sure you're going to mention that I think is insane, but I understand why you feel that way. There may be one way out of this situation, and it's throw a ridiculous amount of assets at one guy who fits perfectly and hope he's available. If there is anything on the planet Earth that the Brooklyn Nets would trade Mikal Bridges for, you do that immediately at all costs.
Yeah, probably.
That may be the only way out.
He's a perfect fit.
He is.
It would have been nice if you just, already had him.
Kept him when you drafted. I know.
Which I was upset about when the trade happened.
I think everybody was.
But there was Sixers.
There are big Zaire Smith fans out there?
Not even the Zaire Smith fans. There was the Sixers Kool-Aid drinkers that whatever they did, they were behind. Even though Hinkie wasn't even here for that. Remember, Brett Brown, maybe
Nobody was here for that.
Yeah, well, Brett Brown was here.
Maybe they didn't even have a real GM.
Brett Brown was with Sam Hinkie, and there were people that thought, maybe Sam told him.
What, like he left him a secret note, like in numbers?
Dude,
like what?
There's conspiracy theories with everything, and I've been here for 10 years. I've heard them all. Right?
I'm sure you have.
So, it was the 7 Horcruxes from Harry Potter and Sam Hankins.
Yeah,
Sam Brett Brown on it.
Exactly. It's
and that was Zaire Smith.
Tell me Mikal Bridges doesn't fix everything. Like,
he fixes a lot. Because now all of a sudden you have what the Sixers need to come away with this offseason, the number one thing they need to come away with is a guy that can create and score off the perimeter, a 3. And that is Mikal Bridges. So,
how great would it be if that guy also played every single game and played defense?
Yeah, it'd be great.
And what does Brooklyn need him for?
They don't. There's some teams that they hold on for whatever reason. I've ripped the Chicago Bulls to no end. I don't know why they held on to Andre Drummond last year. I read you weren't here. Did you see the Alex Caruso report that came out earlier this week? They were offered a top 10 draft pick for Caruso last year.
And they said no?
They said no because they still wanted to make a push for the playoffs. They were the 10th seed. I don't even know if they finished in the top 10.
What is
I forget already.
My goodness.
But yes,
that organization.
like there are, we've talked about this a lot. There are a lot of stupid organizations in sports.
I don't think Brooklyn's one of them. I don't. I think they did a really, really good job of putting together that KD, Kyrie, and James Harden team.
That should have worked had Kyrie. If Kyrie was the Kyrie he is now with Dallas,
that works.
That works.
Yeah, and then like moving him in theory, we knew what Ben Simmons was, but moving James Harden in theory for Ben Simmons, that's not a bad like last ditch to keep something together that you can win with.
Right.
Like they don't make. I think Brooklyn makes relatively smart decisions. I think they've been relatively unlucky, and maybe they realize it's time to rebuild, and maybe they let Mikal Bridges come home to Philadelphia where he should have always been,
and they get 3 first-round picks for it.
Well, the good thing about him is he would be a third star where you might not have to pay him max money. You'd have to give him a good contract, but you might not have to.
He's going to get a max.
You think he's getting a max?
He's getting a max.
I don't know.
He's 100% getting a max.
Dude, he's a stud. He's gonna.
I mean, you don't have to tell me twice.
He's going to get a max contract.
All right, Villanova, calm down.
And he probably deserves it. Yeah, I mean, look, that I think changes everybody's mindset. Everybody. I don't think there's a Sixers fan, unless you're a lunatic. I don't think there's a Sixers fan that would be against that.
It's the one somewhat realistic option that could lead to that result.
Yeah, I like it, Connor. All right. Coming up next, we continue the conversation. We get a couple of questions out of the hat. I like to save the 9:30 segment on a Friday for like 2 or 3 questions out of the hat. So you'll hear some more coming up next. You can text in, call, and we'll get to some more of your text messages as well. It's Kincade and Salciunas. Connor is in for John today. John will be back on Tuesday. So Connor will be filling in for John on Monday as well.
My brain feels empty.
You don't have to tell me.
Hope you enjoy your vacation.
His
Johnny.
words, man.
We love you.
Yeah, we love you, Johnny. All right. Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Bagster.com.
It is 9:28 on Kincade and Salciunas.
Come on, man.
And it's the second time this week.
Apologize to the nice people at the Bagster.
It's the second time this week. My bad, Bagster. I'm just so excited to do the show that sometimes I get jumpy and I forget that we hit the sponsor. And I was also laughing because I think about John singing every time that damn song plays.
It's okay.
All right.
It's okay.
Want to let you know about the deal of the week.
Please do.
Get two $50 gift cards that can be used at over 200 Pennsylvania Campground Owners Association campgrounds for the price of one. So $50 gets you 100. Get this exclusive offer while supplies last at 975thefanatic.com/deals. And, of course, FanFest September 28th at Xfinity Live. All the Fanatic hosts, celebrity guests, Philly sports legends, activities, games. You know it. It's the biggest party of the year for Philadelphia sports fans. Last year was incredible. Can't wait for another year. Saturday, September 28th at Xfinity Live, presented by our friends at FanDuel. Go to 975thefanatic.com for all the details, including info for our online ticket rates, which will be starting up soon. Give me a number.
4.
Brendan, give me a number.
11. Too much?
11's not too much.
Let's meet in the
it's
middle
not
and
too
go
much.
7.
Well, I'm going to do caller 4 and.
Oh.
So, give me a number.
6. Ryan Howard.
Oh, man, imagine being caller 5. All right, caller numbers 4 and 6 to the contest line, 215-263-0975. You'll each win a pair of FanFest tickets, 215-263-0975. Callers 4 and 6. My God, I'm so sorry if you are caller number 5.
Yeah, well, tough luck.
Who wore 6 before, Ryan Howard?
Jimmy Rollins.
Correct. See, I'm proud of you. Did you remember that?
No, I'm not a numbers guy.
I know you're not a numbers guy.
I'm not a numbers guy.
It's the weird things that I remember.
Bro, if you catch me on a bad day, I'll forget Ryan Howard wore.
Do you remember Jimmy Rollins' first number when he came up?
He wore 22.
I believe that is accurate. Let me just no, sorry. 29.
29. Yeah, it was some weird number in the 20s. I'm not good with the numbers.
Dude, that would be a bust-out jersey. Number 29, Jimmy Rollins jersey.
I've seen a Jimmy Rollins 29 jersey. I've never seen the actual jersey, but I have seen the jersey. All right, so before we get to the text messages and our questions out of the hat, let's go to our man, Tasty Cake Dom. Dommy, good morning.
Hey, Andrew. You guys are doing really good. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, Dommy. We appreciate it.
Good, great show. You made me call you, Andrew, because I was at the last game at the Vet, and man, there's nothing that was like that.
Well, see, but you weren't at the NLCS last year.
I was not.
I wonder, for those who could have been at both, and maybe there was somebody at both, how it could have compared. Now, I've heard the stories, Dom. Like, obviously me and Anthony talked about it a lot. Like, I know how rough, based off of stories that have people that were at that game, how horrible it was. I just wonder how close it was leaving Citizens Bank Park last year, because it wasn't just a one-off game. They were up 3-2. How many times did we say, "Oh, they're not going to lose"? And Philly's the greatest home field advantage. They lost both games.
That was bad last year, and you could throw the Sixers last year. That was bad.
5 minutes. 5 minutes left.
I mean, there's been some bad ones, so that's why I listen to you guys every day, and I'm hoping you and Connor can turn me on. But I gave myself Novocaine next year I'm numb for the basketball season next year.
Dude, I don't blame you. And look, last time we spoke, you were talking about training the big man. I know how you're feeling.
Yeah, I just feel like, because I give the Celtics more credit than a lot of other. I don't think anybody's going to touch them next year. I think they're 10 years from now, Andrew, you're going to be doing your show, and you're going to consider them an all-time great team because they had won 3.
Yeah, I hope not, Tommy.
Me too.
Brother, enjoy your weekend, man. We appreciate the call. I really hope not. All right, give us a text there, Brendan, then we'll start pulling some questions out of the hat.
All right, we'll keep it with the basketball team. Bill from Medford, he said, are fans really sighing over the possibility of not getting Paul George? All the people I talk to don't want him anyway. Yes, Jimmy will be 40. Obviously, that's not his age. And Paul George will be 39, and he's always injured. Why do we care if we get Paul George or not? The only older guy we should want is LeBron James.
So I've said I did not want Paul George. Here's what concerns me. It is my belief that Paul George had always been like the number one, not just like LeBron, I believe, would be the number one wish list for any team.
But is it realistic?
Right. I believe it was the number one realistic possibility for the Sixers. And if they don't get him, how far off is the drop-off other realistic possibilities?
Yeah, and that was Bill in Medford, right? Was the texture?
Bob, I thought.
That was Bill.
Bill, sorry.
Checkmate. But like when Bill says LeBron should be the only older guy you want, here's the thing. Ideally, do we want LeBron? Yes, we both said that. Andrew and I have. But if you don't get him, you know what happens? The franchise doesn't just fold.
Yeah, the season still happens.
Like, you still have to play. You still have to give someone a max contract. If Paul George doesn't come, well, it goes to the next guy. If Jimmy Butler's not available, the next guy.
How do you sell people on that?
Like, you don't. That's the thing. You don't sell people if you don't get a good enough player. And that's kind of the risk that the Sixers are running, and it's not totally their fault because there's not a great crop of free agents the year that they have their most flexibility.
Are you winning with anybody else besides like getting LeBron? Does that make you jump to maybe as good as the Celtics? Like, nobody else makes you jump to that kind of level. Like, I don't care if they go out there and get Paul George, Jimmy Butler. They're not on that level. And yeah, we can sit here and hope and say the NBA season has to pan out and play out how it does and injuries happen and blah, blah, blah. But dude, I've seen the story 8 times already.
You're right. But like, that's the thing. That's where we've been at with John with this conversation. That's where a lot of people are at. You're right. But you can't choose to just not have another option. Like, no option is not an option.
Yeah, then your other option is blowing it up and starting
trade
over.
everybody and move and
I can't do that with you.
Yeah, I'm not blowing it up. Like, that would be silly. So I get going out there and getting a Paul George. It's better than nothing, but is it good enough?
Probably not. But
probably not, dude. Like,
most of their options are probably not good enough.
That's pretty unfortunate. And that's why coming in today, I knew that we were going to kind of get into this direction, that people are already miserable, and I can't blame anybody for feeling that way. I really can't. All right, give us some questions out of the hat there, B-Gun.
All right, let's pull the first one. Got a long one. What would you do if you knew it wouldn't fail? Example, skydive.
Oh, this is definitely a question that I wrote before, because skydive would be my answer. I would love to do it.
Yeah.
I will never do it because it might not work. And that's it.
That's very true.
Lights out. So, like, that. But that would be an answer. I will give you one. And it's about to happen again. That submarine thing.
Oh, the Titanic
Dude,
stuff
that was
thing?
my answer.
Yeah. Oh, I would do it. That would be so freaking cool.
Because it's been a year since it went missing yesterday.
Yeah, and there's a guy that's trying to do it.
Do it again.
Yeah, because he believes there was a flaw that they did, but it's not a flawed plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would do that. Like, if I could go into a submarine and go down to the Titanic, and explore that would be freaking awesome.
You know what I would do? You've seen those, like, the Olympic ski jump champions, the ones, the super long ones.
Oh yeah,
that would be it.
That's
how
pretty cool.
sick
That's
would
actually
that
pretty
be?
cool.
Like, if I knew, I don't need the skill to do it multiple times. If I knew I could land one of those, because that might terrify me more than anything in the world. Like, that would be so cool.
I could think of scarier things than that, but okay.
Yeah, well,
like if an anaconda is coming to you,
like a thing that I could choose to do.
I would recreate that Kobe video from like 2008 where he jumps over the Lamborghini, which is fake because he's like to the side, but I would actually do it and jump over the Lamborghini if I knew it wouldn't fail.
Such a random answer.
Over a car?
But I
well, you
love
stole my answer, so
I know. I'm sorry. Like, I would like to go to space.
Yeah, that I definitely thought about going to the moon.
Oh, I'm dead serious.
Well, you'd be the first.
Oh, all right.
I have said this on the air, and I think it was in a previous life, so you guys might not know this. I would very willingly raise my hand and be abducted by aliens. As long as they
bring you back,
tell me that I will be back for my family. You know, I know space, the time's a little bit different, so if you go out there for like 5 days, it's like a year.
Yeah, Interstellar.
Right.
You're sitting there looking at everybody pass by the dust.
I'm in the bookcase, Murph. Like, I don't want that. But, like, I would very gladly be abducted by aliens, and I think I could create world peace.
Okay.
Or intergalactic peace.
I would run through a hole and tackle Brian Westbrook because I know it wouldn't fail, and then I can
Stop
say
it.
I did it.
Stop it. All right, we're moving on.
All right, give us another question out of the hat.
All right, here we go. The time you got in trouble the most with your parents.
Oh, that's easy.
Go ahead, you go first.
I threw a rather large party back in high school.
Nice.
And it was not good. And you know what? I got away with it too. But my rat neighbor across the street went and dived me out. Literally stopped my mom when she was driving back into town from the trip she was on and said, "Hey, do you know what your son did?" Guess what? No cops got called. Nobody got hurt. Nothing got broken. Nothing got stolen.
Look, if you guys got in trouble during the party, like, all right, you're still a rat but that means you were probably being rowdy. But the fact that your neighbor waited how many days?
It was another day and a half she came back.
What are you doing?
Absolutely. I hate that guy forever now.
Did that guy never party ever in his life?
Must not have.
Did that guy just sit at his house every single day?
We had no issues. No one caused any problems. No one broke anything. No one stole anything. It was miraculous. The only reason we actually got away with it was about 2 hours into the party. Someone saw like police lights out on the highway, which you could see from my house. Someone yelled cops, and like most of the people bounced early. Yeah. So it was perfect. And we didn't actually get in any trouble. Everyone got home safe.
A cool neighbor goes up to knocks on the door the next day.
Yeah.
Yo, dude, everything all right?
No, he came to the door during the party, too. It was like, do your parents know you're doing this? Of course, we said, well, yeah.
Okay, but like, was he troubled by the noise?
I don't even know. My brother talked to him, but it wasn't anything that
like, look, if he said we've all seen Project X, right?
Right.
Where the guy tried.
It wasn't Project X.
Right, but like the guy tried having the people turn it down because the baby's trying to sleep. Like, I'm in that position now, right? Like, I get it.
He had a daughter my age that I went to middle school and high school with at the same time.
This guy's a loser.
This guy's a
dork.
This guy's a loser.
Nah, she was relatively normal.
Okay.
B-Gun, do you have one?
Yeah, I mean, long story short, so there was a wedding venue in my hometown. Me and my buddies climbed on the roof. The chef left the door open to the kitchen, went home. People walking by thought we broke in, called the police. Police came, we slid down the roof. We ran through the woods for 2 hours, got away. My buddy's car was still there, so they knew where he lived. They came to his house, they kicked his door down, took us all to the police station. My parents had to come pick us up.
Kicked his door down?
Kicked his door down. I swear to God, swear on my mom's life. Kicked his door down. Got there. They couldn't prove anything because they called the chef, and the chef said, "Oh, man, I just left the door open. Nothing was stolen or anything. They thought we stole it. They just pinned a bunch of loose shingles on us. We had to pay that. We're never allowed back at that wedding venue again." So that's what happened.
Yeah,
but
bro, we got a convicted felon over here running the board.
It was settled off on the side because we didn't do anything.
That's ridiculous. So my parents were very strict with the be home by.
Yeah.
Very strict. Like 11 o'clock, if I'm not home, I was in trouble.
You're in trouble.
There was a night where there was this girl, all right, and I didn't get home till 2 in the morning. Now, the place I was at had zero service.
Yeah, you guys are getting ice cream.
Zero service at this house. No, it wasn't even the house. Where we were at, zero service. And it's known that place has zero service. And I dropped this girl off home and then drove home, and all of a sudden the phone starts. I had like 18 missed calls.
Oh, no.
And text. Because I had, at the time, it was like a Sprint. So I didn't even think I had an iPhone yet. So, like, I was getting nothing, dude.
You had one of those "Can you hear me now" phones, right?
Yeah. And I knew I was in trouble before I even pulled in the driveway. Because it was 2 in the morning and the lights were on in my house. And I was like, oh, no. Why are the lights on? And I walked in, and my mom and my dad were... You could see the kitchen table when you first walk in. I opened the front door, and they're both sitting there. My mom's got the phone in the hand. She had already called the police, asking if there had been an accident somewhere. I got reamed out.
See, now I just feel bad for your parents because they thought something happened.
Yeah, they thought I died.
Yeah, but that's on you because you had the jump on them.
A couple years after that, I married that woman, so
hey,
it kind of worked out. I did not tell my parents who the girl was until after we got married, and I was like, "Oh yeah, remember that day?
No way,
remember that day you thought I died? Yeah, that's your daughter-in-law now."
That's awesome.
Yeah, but dude, it was not cool because it was during the summer, so I was grounded for a long time during the summer, which sucks.
That's where you go to the hospital. You tell them your tummy hurts, and your parents show up. You say, "Sorry, I didn't have my phone."
Yeah, sure.
You got to bail yourself out.
So
somehow.
that was the worst one. All right, we got the Key 3 coming your way next, and our crossover with Bob Cooney, who's back today. It's Kincade and Salciunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. I hope everybody has a great weekend. We got our crossover with Bob Cooney coming up, but it's time now for the Kincade and Salciunas Key 3.
Now, the Kincade and Salciunas Key 3. Today's best.
What happened last year is inexcusable. The only thing that will make me feel better after this weekend is if not only they sweep the Diamondbacks, but they beat them by 10 runs at each. Like an absolute beatdown, which that's not going to happen.
No.
So I'm not going to feel better with the fact that the Phillies choked away a 2-1 and 3-2 series lead to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the 3-2 series lead, both games back at Citizens Bank Park, and the bats went ice cold. What happened last year has nothing to do with this year. It doesn't, except for maybe the mentality. I told you when I was down in spring training, I picked up on this mentality that the Phillies had of still being the fun bunch, but there's a different attitude. They were going to be serious. They were going to be more businesslike. And look, we've seen it. They've won 49 games already. They're looking for win number 50 on June 21st, which is freaking awesome. But dude, other than maybe having a different mentality going into this season, what happened last year, I will never forgive them for. Ever. They can win the World Series this year. I will still not forgive them for what happened last year. They should have beaten the Texas Rangers in the World Series. And when you have 2 series leads against the Arizona Diamondbacks, a way inferior opponent, I'm going to forever feel a certain type of way about that team. I stand by it. Last year was the deepest team they've ever had. Not talented team, because the most talented team was the 2019 Sixers. But that was the deepest team in terms of having guys that could contribute coming off the bench. For crying out loud, Cameron Payne didn't play the first 2 games of the series against the Knicks and then comes out and balls out in game 3. But last year's team was deep. But it's not easy to just say, yeah, just go get a guy that scores 16, 18 a game. Because Tobias Harris did do that. It was just come playoff time when he would pee himself.
And I also don't think that's good enough. Think about it. If that last year's Sixers team was healthy and they ran up against the Celtics team, they're losing. They're losing.
Yes.
And we don't know what the Celtics are going to look like next year, but they're probably not getting significantly worse. As good as this team is, how can we know that slump that they hit in the final part of the NLCS isn't going to happen again? And I'm not saying 3 games in June are going to tell you that. I'm saying where the Diamondbacks are at this year and where the Phillies are at this year, and the divergent paths of these 2 teams should tell you that what we believed last year was correct. That the Phillies were the much better team and still are. And that was...
What does that get me?
And it was an anomaly.
Okay, then an anomaly in the NLCS, Connor.
I understand. It doesn't make you feel better about last year, but dude, there's a portion of this fan base that believes that those 3 games are what this team is in the postseason.
Any team they face in the playoffs this year on the National League side, other than the Dodgers, I believe are inferior to the Phillies. I don't want there to be any reason for me to say is why they lost. And last year, even though the lineup went cold collectively, you had guys in the lineup like a Johan Rojas who was an automatic out. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to have automatic outs on my team. I don't want to have defensive issues on my team. I want to go into and you have the opportunity to, because for the first time in a long time, you actually have a legitimate farm system where you can probably attract some teams that will give you one of their top players if they are sellers, and you could trade your top prospects for them. I know it's easier for me to say because I have the belief of I don't give a damn about prospects, so it's easier for me to say that. But what happened last year is an added incentive for me to go out there and be aggressive, because I don't want to have any reason why they lose a playoff series to an inferior opponent.
This team's better than most of the teams in the National League, probably all of them right now, including the Dodgers, but that's a close series if and when that happens. But wanting to improve this team so that there's no holes in the roster is absolutely fair, and that's what every single Phillies fan should want.
All right, that's the Kincade and Salciunas Key 3, the 3 best minutes from today's show. John obviously not in today. Connor filling in. Brendan Gunn producing the show today. John will be back on Tuesday, so he's still going to be out on Monday. Right now, it's time for our crossover. Bob Cooney back today. Bobby, how was the golf?
What's up, boys?
Yesterday?
It was awesome. Great time for a great foundation, Michael Barkan. So saw a lot of people in the business. A lot of former great athletes. The greatest third baseman in the history of baseball was
Cody
there.
Ashe?
So, yeah, we had a good time. Very, very fun, and always is.
Bob.
Yes.
We've been, on Fridays, we do the questions out of the hat.
You do.
So I'm curious. What was the time you got most in trouble for in your youth from your parents?
That's funny. I never really... So... I had this thing in my knees when I was in 7th grade. It was not a disease, but a thing called what's it called Osgood Slaughter, something like that. I forget. So it's like your knees it's like growing pains in your knees.
Okay.
And back then, the thing was doctors would shut you down for a year. You weren't allowed to run. So I couldn't play basketball in 7th grade, all this stuff. But I used to go back to the courts near my house, and I would shoot up and stuff like that. This one time, my dad saw me trying to imitate an NBA players, how they walk, and I was taking these really long strides.
Yeah.
He thought I was running, and he, drug me off the court and said, had some keywords for me.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
Because my dad had a club foot, so he could never play sports. So he was afraid I was going to hurt my knees so much that I wasn't going to be able to play sports, which was just silly. But, yeah, that was the most ticked off. I was a good kid. I didn't get into trouble.
What happened?
That's so nice.
I just went up into my room.
Oh, no, I meant what happened to you being a good kid.
Oh.
Well, he became an adult.
I'm a good adult.
Connor. You are.
You are good.
Honestly,
yes.
Sure.
All right, what's on the show today?
Yeah.
Bill Colarulo today?
Bill Colarulo today. Larry Bowe is going to join us at 1 o'clock,
Nice.
talk some Phillies, about what's going on there. I have some thoughts about this Phillies team. I'm surprised that I've gone there, and Andrew, your ears are going to perk up when I say this. But I have a topic that I want to talk about that I miss the old Phillies. I'll just leave it at that. Old could mean 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or maybe it could mean a couple weeks ago.
Ooh.
But that's a topic that I have today. But a lot of Phillies today. We'll talk some Sixers and stuff, and importance of organizations moving forward in this city.
Oh, the Sixers offseason is important.
It is.
See how it goes.
It was funny. I heard you guys. How do you grade the Sixers offseason? I was like, they haven't done anything. How can we grade it? You know what I mean?
It's
not grade it,
I
but
see
how's it
people
been?
are already panicking on social media because a lot of people wanted Caruso. He's gone. The Paul George stuff doesn't look like it's going in their favor.
Yeah.
Now it's like, all right, what else?
That's another topic we have today. All right, boys.
All right, Bobby.
All right, and also remember to support life-saving cancer research. Join me and our generous partners, Pumpman Philly, in making a donation to the American Association for Cancer Research today at 975thefanatic.com/AACR. Cancer research saves lives.
Everybody have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back